Chapter 40-50. He had personally driven to the SWAT team yesterday to check on Unyielding, which had given the SWAT team members a shock. No wonder Unyielding was so powerful. It turned out that she was Zhou Huanyin's sister. Okay, see you tomorrow. The captain didn't invite him again. He glanced at the male SWAT officer who had been punched by Zhou Unyielding and couldn't speak for a long time. After Zhou Unyielding left, he sighed. You know quite a lot. Don't interrupt next time. He even remembered such a small thing about women so clearly. The male SWAT officer who had been punched so hard that he couldn't straighten his back felt very wrong. I'm just concerned about my colleagues. How would I know that I was punched? Is it wrong to be concerned? She's so strong that I have to bite my tongue when I speak. The captain didn't want to remind him, but seeing that his brothers still didn't understand what they had done wrong, as the captain, he had to give them pointers. It's not wrong to be concerned, but it's not pleasant to hear. That's a woman's privacy, do you understand? Is privacy something you can talk about? Are you stupid? The male SWAT officer who suddenly understood let out a long "oh" sound, but he still felt wronged. I didn't even see her as a woman. You didn't see her as a woman. You even know that she was in a bad mood half a month ago. The captain felt a little tired. He took his towel and wiped his sweat before leaving. Unyielding changed her clothes and left the team's boxing room. She had been detained in the team for the past few days. No, it should be said that she and two other colleagues who had rushed to the scene that day were all detained in the team. She didn't know how the investigation was going and whether the murderer had been found. Since the lieutenant general was involved, the case should be solved as soon as possible. Even the military was alarmed. A pair of black eyes that were as sharp as a dagger flashed through her mind. Unyielding, who was driving away from the SWAT team, couldn't help but miss a beat again. That young girl's eyes were very beautiful and also very murderous, as if she had really killed someone. Unyielding didn't dare to look into her eyes. She was the relative of the person involved. Officer Liu had specially instructed her not to tell anyone she had seen in the hospital after returning to the team, including her colleagues and the captain. The lieutenant general had also personally said that this matter was a top military secret and only he knew about it. Although she was a police officer, she also knew what top military secrets were, but she still wanted to know if the murderer had been caught. If she had known earlier, she would have kept that girl's contact information. Otherwise, she could have asked her. It was past 9 o'clock in the morning, and the traffic was heavy on the road. Fortunately, the SWAT team was not in the center of the city. They were already on the third ring road. Unyielding turned on the traffic channel and listened to the traffic jam. After driving for about 10 minutes, he heard on the channel that a car accident had happened on a certain road. The drivers on that road had taken a detour. Unyielding heard that it was the shortest route home, so he turned onto another road after getting on the viaduct. After driving out of the highway and heading south, Zhou Unyielding felt that something was wrong. Looking through the rearview mirror in the center of the car, she saw a car following them at a distance that was neither too close nor too far. She couldn't see clearly how many people were in the car, but due to her professional acuity, she felt that the car had been following her. His hand slowly reached for the SWAT backpack on the passenger seat. He opened the side zipper and pulled out the nunchaku that he usually used for training. Chapter 40-51. Unyielding first called her brother Zhou Huanying. Zhou Huanying was a special police officer who was in charge of the security of the leaders in the Great Hall. After receiving his sister's call, he didn't alert his parents or even his wife and daughter. Instead, he quietly returned to his study. He turned on the phone, entered the satellite system, locked onto Beijing, and entered the street number. Soon, Zhou Huanying knew his sister's exact location. This road led to her home, but it was a long way. How could Unyielding take a detour home? Unyielding seemed to have guessed what her brother would ask. She held the steering wheel firmly with both hands and occasionally glanced at the cars behind her through the rearview mirror. She pretended that nothing had happened and continued driving her own car. She said, "There was a car accident on the shortcut, so I chose to take a detour. Brother, can you tell me where I can get rid of him? It's best if there are fewer cars nearby so that innocent people won't be implicated." There were many people who hated their Zhou family, especially those in the underworld. A few years ago, the underworld issued a hunting order, offering a reward of 500,000 yuan to kill Father Zhou. In the end, Father Zhou was fine, but the grass on the grave of the person who issued the bounty order was already an inch high. The Zhou family had many enemies, so Nian Anian wasn't surprised to see a car following her. Zhou Huaixing wasn't surprised either. Almost everyone in the Zhou family had encountered this kind of situation before. It was just a matter of how to get rid of them. His fingers tapped on the keyboard quickly. Soon, Zhou Huainian began to tell Nian Anian the safest way to take through the satellite map. Enter Tongling Bridge, turn left, go down Slope Road, turn left at Nanding Road. Over the phone, Zhou Huainian's calm and unhurried voice was transmitted to Nian Anian's ears through the earpiece. With his instructions, Nian Anian glanced at the car that was still following closely behind him, and a faint smile appeared on his delicate face. She had a pair of dimples. Even if she smiled slightly, her dimples would appear, making her look even more mischievous and adorable. After crossing Tongling Bridge, when she turned left, she stepped on the accelerator and the car made a whoosh 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 sound as she started the car. The car quickly turned left and disappeared. The man driving behind looked ahead with a malicious gaze. At the same time, he stepped on the accelerator and sped up as well. She has already discovered me. Now, it's your turn to appear. Force her off all the main roads and force her onto the bridge. Her driving skills should be pretty good. Be careful. Inside the car, the man with the mask revealed a pair of eyes that were much deeper than a Chinese person's. The street lights flashed past the window, and from the beams of light, it was clear that this was a Western man, and he spoke in English. He, who was also wearing headphones, informed his friend. Soon, a truck drove out from a side road, and two cars sped toward the slope where Zhou Nianyan was now. Zhou Nianyan turned left and went down Tongling Bridge. Then, he turned left and rushed into Posey Road. Zhou Huaixing could see the satellite map, but he couldn't see the dynamic image. He couldn't keep track of where Zhou Nianyan's car was, so he could only know from his phone. Nian Nian, who was still on the slope, saw that the car behind had caught up with him. At the same time, two other cars were rushing over. "Brother, there's a bit of trouble. Two more cars are coming. They're attacking me now." Nian Anian's brows furrowed slightly. There was no movement from the three cars. It seemed like they were planning to force her to a certain place. Chapter 40-52. After thinking for a while, Nian Anian said calmly, "They probably want to force me into a certain road. They either want to kidnap me or create a car accident, and I will unfortunately die in the car accident. Brother, help me contact the SWAT team, I need them to come out." Nian Anian was not panicked by the three-car pincer attack. While maintaining the speed, she suddenly accelerated. The car sped out dozens of meters in an instant and smoothly turned into Nanding Road. "I've entered Nanding Road and started to turn right onto the main road. See if there are any night traffic police on the main road." To know if there were any night traffic police on the main road, Zhou Huainian could get it done with one phone call. He first called the SWAT team and calmly reported Nian Anian's current situation to the SWAT team on duty. Then he called the traffic police branch in charge of this area of Nanding Road. Unfortunately, today was Thursday, so there were no night traffic police on the main road in this area. There is no night traffic police. Go from Nanding Road to Dongling Road and directly out of the third ring road. See how much gas is left in the car. Your colleague hasn't arrived yet. Your car is even out of gas. Zhou Huainian's reminder made Nian Anian laugh. "Don't worry, the tank is full. I'll go to Dongling Road, and ask my colleague to take the main road. I'll go to Tongping Avenue next to Dongling Road. Ask my colleague to go to Tongping Avenue. Okay, be careful. Although Chao Huainian was worried about his sister, he also knew how capable she was. At this moment, he just forced her to walk on the side road. She could handle it. Tongping Avenue was a main road with 4 lanes on both sides. Unyielding was 3.7 kilometers from Nanding Road to Tongping Avenue. After Chao Huainian told her which side road was the closest, Zhou Yinyan stepped on the accelerator a lot harder. At this time, she did not care whether she was speeding or not. The police cars of the SWAT team were dispatched. There were a total of 4 police cars with sirens blaring and rushing in the direction of Tongping Avenue. The sirens were long, and the whole night sky could feel the tension. The passing cars heard the rapid sirens and gave way to the 4 police cars. They had no way to contact Unyielding. Zhou Yinyan's phone was always on the line with Chao Huainian. She had already arrived at Tongping Avenue. Her speed was very fast, so fast that she almost sped past her. The car owners who were shocked by her speed could not help cursing. His speed had already reached 120 kilometers per hour, which was equivalent to driving on the highway. How could he not be scolded? But very quickly, another 3 cars sped over at the same speed. Some of the drivers thought that it was probably those young masters from the capital who were racing. Damn it, how could a car that cost more than 100,000 be called racing? Are you crazy? After scolding him, the driver felt much better and continued to drive his own car. He behaved himself and did not dare to race like the 4 cars that had just passed by. What they were racing was not the car, but their lives. If they were not careful, they would lose their lives. Anniversary's driving skills were so good that the 3 cars behind her couldn't help but be on guard. They wanted to force the Chinese special police officer, who seemed to know something, onto the viaduct, then let the truck crash into her and knock her car off the viaduct. That way they would get rid of the Chinese special police officer. But what annoyed them was that they didn't know that the Chinese special police was so good at driving. Now that there was trouble, the appearance of this trouble was likely to make their plan fail. Chapter 4053. Don't try to force her onto the viaduct again. This is a Chinese police officer who is very good at driving. Shooting will solve the problem faster than driving. It's very likely that she has already informed her colleagues. If we blow up her tires now, she might be able to see God faster. The Western man who was tailing Zhou Yinyan's car said coldly. He picked up the gun with a silencer on the front passenger seat and prepared to shoot at the wheels of Zhou Yinyan's car. The drivers in the other 2 cars also took out the guns they had hidden in their arms. Whoever approached the target car first would immediately shoot. Yan did not expect that the other party would be carrying guns. Nor did she expect that the people tailing her were not Chinese people at all, nor were they people from the underworld seeking revenge. These people appeared only because she had discovered something. If Yan really asked if she had discovered something, she would definitely not be able to answer because she herself did not know what she had discovered. When the tires burst with a bang, Yan knew that these people had guns in their hands. She was not prepared for this. The moment the tires burst, the car made a sharp S-turn. Because she was on the far left side of the road, which was separated by an iron guardrail, the car suddenly made a big S-turn. The rear-view mirror on the driver's seat was scraped off by the iron guardrail, and the entire left side of the car scraped against the iron guardrail, creating bursts of sparks. Yi Qian entered the 3rd ring road from the security center, and Tongping Avenue was the fastest road to enter the 3rd ring road. She drove at 50 kilometers per hour with the windows open all the way to enjoy the cold wind. Suddenly, she heard the most familiar sound. In an instant, her nerves tensed up. Gunshots. She heard gunshots. Across the front passenger seat, she saw the car in front of her scraping against the iron guardrail. The entire left side of the car scraped against the guardrail, creating bursts of sparks. She quickly rolled down the glass of the front passenger seat. After taking a look, she did not hesitate to accelerate to the traffic light in front of her. Then, she made a left turn and turned onto the other side of Tongping Avenue. She stepped on the accelerator and chased after the car. It was very thrilling, but she steadied the steering wheel again and quickly drove forward. This was the capital, the heart of the country. There were gunshots here again and again. As a military school student, she could not ignore it. She chased after the car at the speed of being scolded. The driver, who did not know what was going on, saw this and scolded her again. The driver, who saw the anniversary car's tire suddenly burst and continued to drive forward, couldn't understand what was going on. Was there something wrong with this person? The car burst, the guardrail and the entire left side of the car scraped, but the driver did not stop. Did he not want the car? Was he going to scrap it? Nyen saw the guardrail. Where are the side roads? Car. Chow Huainian heard the sound of the collision and at the same time used the satellite map to determine the best route. 2. Chapter 40:54. Her expression suddenly turned serious, and she abruptly turned the steering wheel. The car was like an arrow leaving a bow as it slammed into a black sedan. Clang! Swoosh! The first loud clang was Yi Qian using the front passenger seat to hit the driver's seat of the car with a pistol sticking out. The second swoosh was the sound of a pistol being fired. The muffler was installed, so the sound was very soft, and the bullet that had missed its mark flew off somewhere. Yi Qian's collision was a little too violent, and it directly flattened the other car's door. The driver of the car also lost control of the steering wheel, and the entire car lost control and went on a rampage on the road. In the end, it crashed into the green belt planted with trees. The driver in the car cursed loudly, **T. A loud clang was heard, and the car slammed into the green belt so hard that the entire front of the car was curled up. Yi Qian did not stop, because there were still 2 cars that disappeared from her sight. "Brother, I have someone helping me. He helped me get rid of a car. He's probably a colleague who just got off work." Nyen Anian, whose forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat, looked at the 2 cars that were still closely following them. Her voice was a little tense. "Tell the traffic police to be careful. The person in the car that got into an accident might also be carrying a gun." When Chow Huainian heard that there was a colleague who helped his sister, he sat in front of the computer and sighed slightly. His tone was still indifferent. "Let's see if the colleague will catch up. If he catches up, it'll be 2 against 2. You have a chance of winning. Your colleague is still on the way. He told you to stay calm, don't panic. Okay, tell them that I've seen this kind of situation when I was in my teens. I won't panic." At this moment, although Nyen Anian's forehead was covered in sweat, she was still very relaxed. She was driving a car that had its rear wheels blown out. Even though her stomach was heaving up and down, she was still able to speed up the car. But when the time came, this car, even if it was not scrapped, it would have to be heavily repaired. The 2 cars that were closely following them knew that their colleague was in trouble, but they did not stop to watch. Right now, they needed to quickly deal with the target in front of them. This was the Chinese police that they had to deal with. They drove into an industrial park. It was almost 10 o'clock at night, and aside from the street lights, it was dark everywhere. There were only a few lights on in the buildings in the industrial park. Seeing this, Nyen felt even more relaxed. This way, at least she wouldn't have to worry about endangering the people at any time. However, she was also in danger. The 2 cars behind her began to chase her crazily. They were already at the highest speed. At the same time, they reached out their hands and raised their pistols to shoot at the car in front. Whoosh whoosh! They fired randomly at the car by shooting left and right. How could the ordinary glass of the car block the bullets? Soon, the rear windshield of the car was broken, and the glass of the left and right doors at the back were also broken. When Yi Qian caught up, she happened to see two cars shooting at the white car. When she saw that the white car was moving in an S-shaped pattern, her heart sank. She immediately stepped on the accelerator as hard as she could. The car's speed went from 140 kilometers per hour to 180 kilometers per hour in no time, and it was still accelerating. The sound of the car's motor was very loud, and the entire industrial park was very quiet. The people in Yan Anian's car heard the loud sound of the motor. When they saw that the cars were catching up to them at such a fast speed, one of the cars suddenly swerved horizontally and aimed his gun at Yi Qian's car. Yi Qian also drove the car in an S-shaped pattern. This way, the other party could not shoot accurately. Chapter 40-55. Running into gunfire while driving was an essential part of Special Forces training. However, back when Yi Qian was at the motor vehicle training base, at least he had a pistol loaded with blanks to fight back. But now, other than the silver wire that never left his wrist when he went out, he didn't have any other weapons. It was impossible to make the other party stop shooting from a distance. The only way to force the other party to stop shooting was to face them head-on. After making a few S-turns, Yi Qian didn't slow down at all. He was like a cannonball that had already been fired, heading straight for the parked car. Damn it! When the man with the gun saw this, he cursed and quickly released the brake. He no longer tried to stop the guy who came out of nowhere by shooting from the side. He thought that the gun in his hand would be enough to stop the guy who was obstructing them from completing their mission, but who knew that it would exceed their expectations? Who said that the Chinese police were as weak as chickens on a farm? Who said that the Chinese police didn't have the habit of carrying guns and could easily take care of them? Which damnable bastard said that? The Chinese police weren't easy to deal with. At least, the Chinese police they encountered tonight were already troublesome enough. Fred, I'm in a bit of trouble here. After I take care of that Chinese policewoman, I'll take care of this damned guy who came out of nowhere. His car is bulletproof, so there's no way to take care of him. I need to shake him off now. From the rearview mirror, he saw the gray car driving towards him without any regard for its life. That guy was planning to hit his car until he stopped. What's the matter? The man said in a low voice as he turned the steering wheel quickly. He saw the gray car driving towards him as if it didn't care about its life. Yi Qian was indeed planning to do so. He was even prepared to destroy the car he was in. However, what he didn't expect was that the car that came out of the security company, which didn't look like much, was actually a bulletproof car. When the Western man who was chasing after Yi Qian heard his companion say that the car that came out of nowhere was bulletproof, he frowned and warned his companion, "In China, I heard that the guy who can drive a bulletproof car has a very high social status. Shake him off, don't get involved with him." They knew about the Chinese side and even investigated some of the situations in the Chinese society. Therefore, they all knew that the Chinese police did not carry guns every day, let alone after work. They had chosen to get off work on the anniversary and made their move at night. They had done their research in advance before taking action. But who would have thought that anniversary would turn a sedan into a race car? Racing was Nian Junyan's hobby. When they were in junior high school, she had raced together with Zhou Huainian. Of course, she had only been a spectator. When she reached high school, Zhou Huainian brought her to a racing club in the capital. It was during her first year of high school, when she was still underage, that she began to systematically learn how to race. Now, there was still a car that Zhou Huainian had bought for her parked in the F1 racing track outside the capital. When she had time or was under great pressure, she would either run a few laps outside the capital by herself or go with Zhou Huainian to race with the other racers in the club. With her level, she could already participate in large-scale competitions. At this moment, she was driving a car with a broken wheel. After turning into the outermost side road of the industrial park, she suddenly reversed the car. The wheels rolled over the asphalt road at high speed, and the air was filled with the smell of rubber and asphalt. Chapter 40-56. Inside the car, Nien Anian's lips were tightly pursed. Her eyes were very calm as she looked behind her. Under the high beams of the other party's headlights, she drove the car like a crazily dancing snake. At the speed of light, she used the rear of the car to crash into the other party's car. She had to drive back because she didn't know how her colleague was doing. Her brother reminded her that working together was more intimidating and had a higher chance of winning than fighting separately. Most importantly, she couldn't let anything happen to her colleague. Zhou Yinyan, who was worried about her colleague, had now become a rescuer. Her mentality had changed. She originally only wanted to shake off the other party, but now she wanted to force the other party to stop. She wasn't afraid, but the other party didn't dare to risk his life like this. He was only here to take care of a Chinese police officer. After that, he would return to China immediately. He didn't want to risk his life to fight with a seemingly crazy Chinese police officer. When Nien Anian saw this, she smiled a little. It turned out that he cherished his life. Nien Anian reversed the car in front, while Yi Qian attacked from behind. The cars in the middle retreated and advanced. The roaring of the 4 cars' motors startled the security guards in the industrial park and made them run over. "What are you doing? What are you doing? Go racing outside. This is an industrial park, not a place for racing. There are workers who are about to get off work. You'll hit them." The security guards didn't run over. He also knew that he couldn't run over rashly, so he stood by the roadside and shouted. Who could hear him? Yi Jian saw a car reversing in front of her. Then, she saw the white car that had been hit by the car reverse at high speed. After a slight flash of light in her eyes, the car drifted. The 4 wheels of the car made a sharp screeching sound of friction. She was also reversing the car. The wheels kept rubbing against the asphalt road, steady and agile. The driver of the car she was chasing looked more and more gloomy. "Fred, I don't think we can compete with the Chinese police anymore. We underestimated them. Damn it. What happened on your side? Why are you reversing?" The Western man in the car saw the taillights of 2 cars approaching from afar. They were traveling at an alarming speed. Fred, who was forced to reverse, replied to his companion, "Don't be afraid of them. If they want to stop us, we can also hit them directly. I don't believe that they would dare to bump into us, unless they don't want their lives anymore." The security guard standing by the roadside was shocked. He was so shocked that he quickly jumped a few steps and jumped behind the green belt with trees. This was playing with his life. The dumbfounded security guard watched for a few seconds and felt that this was not something he could handle. He immediately ran back to the guard booth to call the police. The skillful Zhou Yinyan did not look like she was driving in reverse at all. On the other hand, Fred, who was forced to retreat, restrained the anger in his eyes and said to his companions in a low voice, "We need to jump out of the car. The Chinese policewoman is very good at driving, like a professional racer." "Fuck. The one chasing me is also a professional racer. Are the Chinese police all damned racers?" When the Western man saw the car in front of him getting closer and closer, he knew that it was time for them to abandon the car. He stretched his gun out of the car window and shot at the street lights in front of him. There were 2 muffled sounds, a little like a piece of thick aluminum that had been dented by the wind and then bounced back on its own. The 2 streetlights were destroyed by him. Suddenly, the road in front of them fell into darkness. Chapter 40-57. He planned to abandon the car and leave as soon as it entered the darkness. As for where the car would go, he didn't care. Yi Qian and Zhou Yinyan didn't know who the other party was, so they used the tactic of hitting the other party's front with the rear of their car to force the other party to stop. Of course, it wasn't a head-on collision. That kind of collision was too strong and would hurt both sides. It was best to use the side of the car to make the other party lose their balance. Nien Anian had raced before, so she was bold. Yi Qian had received systematic training, so he knew what to do. The two of them worked together for the first time, so the enemies who were looking for trouble turned into how to break out of the encirclement. Although the enemies knew that they had underestimated the Chinese police, they weren't very afraid. They were all people who had killed people before. If they were really afraid, they wouldn't have dared to attack the Chinese police. Next, they would jump out of the car and leave quickly. The Chinese police wouldn't be able to find them at all. Of course, even if they were found, it wouldn't matter. They were foreigners and weren't bound by Chinese law. They would find a way to escape. Okay, Fedley, let's get ready to abandon the car. After the Western man who had been chased to the end by Yi Qian shouted, he turned the steering wheel to the side and released his seatbelt. Just as the car was about to rush into the darkness and complete the jump, Yi Qian stepped on the accelerator and rushed over from the side. He used the rear of the car to hit the front of the Western man's car. Bang! 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 The two cars collided with a loud crash. In a high-speed collision, the car that was hit was like a compass that had lost its spirit. After a few rounds of rotation, it hit the stone threshold between the road and the green belt. The whole car was turned upside down. Nian Anian didn't know that the car that had come to her rescue would suddenly do such a thing. When she saw her, she was shocked and said to Zhou Huaiyan, "Brother, the colleague who came to help me is an expert. I haven't even flipped over a car, but he has already helped me solve 2 cars." Nian Anian, don't embarrass the Zhou family. After Zhou Huaiyan finished speaking, he said to the special police team who had been on the phone, Nian Anian's situation is more than half resolved. The colleague who came to help her is an expert. Help her not to overturn 2 cars. It had been half an hour since Nian Nian had been targeted, and the SWAT team had also been out for half an hour. Nian Nian had only been targeted half an hour after she had driven out of the SWAT team, so it had been an hour. Her colleagues from the SWAT team, who had just turned onto Tongping Avenue from Nanning Road, would still need about 15 minutes to arrive at the scene. He still needed to hold on for another 15 minutes. Yi Qian, who had knocked over another car, did not stop. Instead, he continued to move forward and approached another car that was getting closer and closer to him. In the car, Fred had already seen his companion's car being overturned. Seeing this, his eyes flashed viciously. His hands moved nimbly on the steering wheel, nimbly avoiding the first wave of side collisions. Just as he was about to turn around and hit the car behind him, he thought he could do it. Unexpectedly, the car behind him suddenly swerved, and the rear of the car reversed to face him. Now it was Nian Anian's car in front, and Yi Qian's car in the back. Although Zhou Huaiyan's driving skills were good, she did not have Yi Qian's deadly strength. Her plan was only to force the car to hit the green belt tree so that the other party would not be able to reverse. There was no car, but the other party still had a gun. Chapter 40-58. Fred could tell who was the weaker one. He stretched out his hand and fired 2 shots at the rear windshield of Zhou Yan's car. Whoosh whoosh! The first shot shattered the windshield of Zhou Yan's car. Some of the glass shards fell onto the back seat, while some rolled down the back of the car and onto the road. Zhou Yan immediately bent over, but there was a bloody gash on the back of his head caused by the glass shards. When the second shot came, Zhou Yan's face darkened slightly. He immediately turned the steering wheel to avoid the second bullet, but the car did not slow down. Soon, when the 2 cars collided, Zhou Yan swung the rear of the car sideways. When his car was thrown out, the other car was also thrown out. Zhou Yan braked, opened the door, and crouched down. Zhou Yan's actions were executed smoothly. When Yi Qian saw this, she stopped going up and immediately reversed the car. She was worried that the criminal in the other car would escape. After the car stopped, Yi Qian opened the door and was about to go over when she seemed to have noticed something. She instinctively knelt down on one knee beside the front wheel. Through the window of the overturned car, she saw a pair of feet flash past. The car was flipped upside down, but it didn't trap the driver. The driver with the gun climbed out of the car. He had a gun in his hand, but she did not have one. Yi Qian pursed her lips slightly. Then she climbed back into the car and picked up the military cap she had placed on the passenger seat. Now she needed to lure the enemy to shoot and determine his current position. She took out her belt and tied it into an 8-knot. Then she placed the military cap on it. Occasionally, it would slowly extend from the side of the car, then quickly retract it. She was too close to the car that she had knocked down. The distance between the two cars was at most 2 meters. If she had not noticed the pair of feet that had passed by the window, she would have been ambushed. Taking a light breath, Yi Qian once again slowly extended the military cap. At that moment, she heard the sound of a bullet being fired from the silencer. The bullet pierced through the air and hit the military cap. Yi Qian had already thrown his military cap to the side. Judging that the enemy was also hiding in the front of the car, he dashed past the rear of the car. Taking advantage of the moment when the enemy retracted his pistol after firing the first shot, he dashed towards the rear of the enemy's car at an astonishing speed. First, she did a run-up and then a series of rolls. As she was rolling, she heard the sound of fighting in front of her, accompanied by a woman's low and cold voice. After a few rolls, Yi Qian finally found his way to the back of the car. He stuck his head out and saw the back of a man. Yi Qian's dark eyes flashed coldly. He needed to get close to him now. However, she didn't know how many bullets the other party had left. If she approached him from behind, she had to be wary of him suddenly turning around and shooting at her. She had originally come here to get close to him. Now that she was already here, she had to get close to him and subdue him. Yi Qian's back was facing the rear of the car. She exhaled softly and felt around the ground with both hands. She grabbed a handful of glass shards that were scattered all over the floor. Slowly, she chose to approach the man from behind. Before he could turn around, Yi Qian threw the glass shards in her hand at his back. Instead of worrying that he would suddenly turn around, why not let her know when he would turn around? The man who was suddenly attacked from behind turned around abruptly. Without pausing, he turned around and fired. Chapter 40:59. Yi Qian had already rushed over. His movements were like that of a ferocious tiger descending the mountain. With a roaring momentum, he clamped down on the man's hand that was holding the gun. Swoosh! The bullet shot into the sky, completely deviating from the trajectory that the gunman wanted the bullet to shoot. The Western man's expression became particularly fierce as he realized that the person he was fighting with was yet another woman. Is she another Chinese policewoman? Are all Chinese policewomen better than Chinese policewomen? Fuck! The Western man cursed in anger. This was not an easy man to deal with. With his hand clamped down by Yi Qian, he raised one of his legs and kicked fiercely at Yi Qian. Yi Qian did not dodge, nor did he release his grip on the man's wrist. Instead, he twisted the man's wrist violently and raised his leg to kick him. Now that it was close combat, he was more confident. The man whose wrist was twisted by Yi Qian couldn't help but feel pain. He wanted to tighten his grip on the gun in his hand, but Yi Qian did not give him a chance to do so. He released his grip on the man's wrist, and with a quick click, the gun's magazine was removed by Yi Qian. Even the magazine had been removed, and the pistol had lost its power. When the Western man saw this, he simply threw the gun to the side. He clenched his fists, jumped slightly on the spot, arched his back a little, and began to attack with his legs. Yi Jian had no choice but to dodge the ferocious onslaught of attacks. The continuous kicks and punches forced Yi Jian to dodge again and again to avoid the fierce attacks. This was a Western man who had learned close combat and was quite skilled. Although Yi Qian did not see the man's face clearly, based on his build, he judged that he was a Western man. A foreigner who came to China and did not abide by China's gun and ammunition control laws. He even openly opened fire and committed murder on the road. With such disregard for China's laws, if he escaped today, it would only encourage his arrogance. He couldn't let him escape. He had to teach him a lesson, After using his arms to block his opponent's kicks and punches, Yi Qian took a few steps back and shook his aching arms. It was her turn now. He was unarmed, but Yi Qian did not intend to do the same. The most effective killing move was to finish off the enemy in the shortest amount of time. This was something that every Special Forces soldier in the Snowfield Brigade knew. Who would have the time to throw punches at each other? As long as they could finish off the enemy immediately, they would. With a slight movement of his right hand, he removed the silver thread that he had been wearing on his left wrist for the past few days. The Western man did not notice Yi Qian's actions. He only knew that his failure to kill the other Chinese policewoman had a lot to do with this. Chinese policewoman in front of him. He also knew that his continuous combat attacks just now had forced this Chinese policewoman, who had appeared out of nowhere, to be unable to fight back. Killing one Chinese policewoman was also killing. Killing two Chinese policewomen was also killing. A murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Western man, who had come to China to kill people. 2 street lamps had been destroyed, and they happened to be in a dark place. Only the street lamp across the road cast a faint light over. Yi Qian stood in the dark in his military uniform. His olive-green uniform had turned black, which made the Western man mistakenly think that she was also a policewoman. Chapter 40-60. Yi Qian didn't get a clear look at her opponent's face, but she could clearly feel the murderous intent emanating from him. "You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability to do so." After retreating, Yi Qian shrugged back and forth. At the same time, she unbuttoned her military uniform. The student uniform was a slim-fit type, so it wasn't convenient for her to make large movements. Furthermore, she didn't want her uniform to get dirty during a fight, so it was best to take it off to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. She took off her jacket and placed it on the green belt. The man who could vaguely see her movements sneered and deliberately humiliated her. "If you take off all your clothes, I think you might still have a chance to beat me." Yi Qian waved her hand. Her eyes were also filled with murderous intent. She didn't want to waste her breath on this kind of person. "Let's fight, cut the crap. Don't you know that the more you talk, the faster you die?" The man, who was about 184 meters tall, attacked again. His legs were very long, and he lifted his leg to kick like before. The strong wind from his kick made it obvious that he was also very strong. After Yi Qian blocked it with her arm, the silver wire in her hand had already wrapped around her opponent's ankle. When her opponent continuously kicked with one leg, Yi Qian tightened her grip twice and didn't use her arm to block anymore. In an instant, she went from being the passive party to the attacking party. She had never been afraid of close combat. Since her opponent came, she would fight. She would fight until her opponent was on the ground. Her hands instantly gripped her opponent's ankle tightly. At the same time, she lifted her right leg and kicked her opponent's knee. The knee and calf bones were the areas where the nerves that sensed pain were concentrated. There was no way that a kick wouldn't hurt. If she kicked at the knee, she could break her opponent's calf. The man, who thought he was going to win, was unprepared for Yi Qian's kick to his knee. The pain was as if a car had run over his right leg. He couldn't even stand on his 2 feet. It was so painful that he gasped and retreated on one leg. This pain was the pain of a broken leg. He wanted to jump back with 1 foot, but as soon as he took a step back, his left ankle seemed to be strangled by something invisible. The pain made him lose his balance as he retreated in panic. His right leg could not stand properly, and with Yi Qian's tightened grip on his legs, the Western man who thought he could kill one more Chinese policewoman a second ago instantly fell to the ground. If a person was too tall, falling down would be so painful that he couldn't get up for a long time. Yi Qian didn't give the guy who wanted to kill her a chance to get up. With a leap, she leaped into the air and used her right leg to strike the guy's chest. The man, who didn't have time to get up, felt as if he had been hit in the chest by a huge rock. His head and legs were lifted up, but his chest was crushed. At that moment, the man, who thought he could kill the Chinese policewoman, was hit so hard that his vision turned black. Yi Jian had already subdued the Western man whose vision was turning black. The silver thread that wrapped around his ankle pulled inward. The man, who had been enduring the excruciating pain, pressed the heel of his right leg against the root of his inner thigh. He could no longer hold back and let out a scream. Ah! F***ck. Fuck. Son of a b***tch, let go of me. His screams were accompanied by insulting curses. Yi Qian's face darkened when she heard him. She tightened her grip on the silver wire and tightened it around the man's right leg. Then she wrapped the silver wire around the man's neck, from the front of his shoulder to his armpits to his back. She tied him up in an extremely strange position. You want to escape? Ha, try me! Chapter 4061. The man's insults did not make Yi Jian angry. She just grabbed a few handfuls of grasses that were used for greening and stuffed them into the man's mouth. The grasses were dusted with ash and the withered grass with roots and clay. Since he didn't know how to speak human language, he must have grown up eating grass. Let's see if we can stop him from speaking human language by eating a few more handfuls of grass. Sure enough, his mouth was blocked. His eyes were burning with anger, as if he had been greatly humiliated. Coming to China with a gun to kill people, and now being caught thinking that he had been greatly humiliated, Yi Qian couldn't help but say coldly, "If I kill you now, no one will say that I shouldn't kill people. On the contrary, they will think that I did the right thing. If you don't want to die in my hands now, you better shut up," she said coldly, and it was obvious that she wasn't lying. Based on the crimes that this man had committed, she had enough reasons to deal with him, and she definitely wouldn't be bound by the law. In China, there was only one kind of person that could be quickly taken care of by the Chinese police, special forces, and armed police. People who hurt people with weapons. This man belonged to the category of people who hurt people with weapons, and he was in the most serious category. Yi Qian's words didn't scare the man. They weren't easy to scare. The man, who was still angrily spitting out the grass in his mouth, was about to curse again when Yi Qian, who was already prepared, stuffed another mouthful of grass into his mouth. If you don't know how to speak human language, then you should just eat grass obediently. The fight in front wasn't over yet. Yi Qian stood up with a cold expression. She didn't look at the Western man who was tied up by her and couldn't escape. She ran forward. The distance wasn't far, only about 30 meters. When she got closer, Yi Qian immediately recognized the woman who was fighting with the other Western man. It was actually the Special Forces officer, Nian, whom she had met at the hospital a few days ago. Her skills weren't bad, and she didn't use any fancy moves. She kicked the Western man hard in the chest, causing him to take a few steps back. However, the dagger in the other party's hand also slashed Zhou Nian's leg. The sharp tip of the dagger cut through Zhou Nian's pants, leaving a bloody wound on Zhou Nian's leg. Zhou Nian wasn't intimidated by the dagger in the other party's hand. She heard footsteps behind her and raised her voice. "Fellow traveler, can you help me? I have a nunchaku in my car. Please help me get it. Thank you. Leave this to me. Please help me look after the other criminal." Nunchaku? Anniversary year? Yi Qian naturally knew about nunchaku, but this was the first time he had seen someone use nunchaku. He originally wanted to rush up and deal with the Western man with Zhou Nian, but after pausing, Yi Qian changed his mind and went to the car to get the nunchaku for Zhou Nian. She hadn't seen anyone using nunchakus in real life yet, so she might as well take a look now. And just now, she suddenly remembered where she had heard the name, anniversary year. That night, when Uncle Chen left, she was so sad that she didn't think too much about it when she heard Zhou Nian's name. She also didn't realize that she had heard it before. When Nian asked her to help get the nunchaku, she instantly remembered that her grandfather had mentioned Zhou Nian and her nunchaku. "Your brother is really a blockhead. Your Uncle Fu and I tried our best to persuade Nian Nian to bring the nunchaku next time. I even said that I would ask her to bring the nunchaku next time so that I could take a look, but your brother didn't answer me. My little princess, I'm so angry that I can't sleep. Chapter 4062. Zhou Nian, Nunchaku. The first time her brother brought a girl home, it was Anian, a special police officer who knew how to use nunchaku. They even had a small misunderstanding. Anian thought that her brother was a dangerous person and followed him to Dangue Garden. Her grandfather thought that Anian was a good girl and wanted her brother to pursue her. However, her brother did not take it to heart and did not even have Anian's contact number. That was why her grandfather was so angry that he could not sleep. At that time, she even joked with her grandfather that she would definitely meet the special police officer that her grandfather was full of praises for. She did not expect to meet her a second time so soon. She did not recognize her the first time they met, but fortunately, she recognized her the second time. Because of old Master Fu's satisfaction, Yi Qian was suddenly curious about Zhou Nian. Regardless of whether her brother liked Anian or not, she was curious about her. Opening the car door, Yi Qian found the nunchaku under the passenger seat. It was very heavy and made of stainless steel. Yi Qian did not know how to use it, but she could not help but swing it around in her hands. She realized that it was quite useful. Being hit by such a heavy nunchaku should be painful for a long time. She ran over to take the nunchaku and immediately ran back. Zhou Nian and the Western man with the dagger started to fight again. The Western man with the knife stabbed horizontally, flicked, sideways and flew. The dagger was very agile in his hands. Nian Nian's body dodged left and right, his palms blocked, and he narrowly avoided the opponent's dagger several times. Her calf was cut so she could not tell that she was injured. Yi Qian could not tell either. She only noticed that as a special police officer, Anian's fighting skills were indeed not bad. She had interacted with female soldiers and police officers before. However, Anian was the first female special police officer that she had interacted with good fighting skills. It was so exciting that she could not help but want to applaud. The special police officers were mainly responsible for anti-terrorism, arresting criminals with strong firepower, hostage rescue, drug interdiction, and domestic cleanup operations. They were a non-military special police force and mainly fought for the country. Attack, support, sniping, sabotage, blockade, fighting. All these tactics were necessary for a SWAT officer to master. As a SWAT officer, Nian Nian knew everything that a male SWAT officer could do. She was quite good at it, otherwise, she wouldn't be the only female SWAT officer in their SWAT team. Perhaps it was because they were both girls, but Zhou Nian's valiant fighting style made Yi Qian feel a sense of camaraderie. Especially when Zhou Nian coldly shouted, "Give me the nunchaku." That sound was as cold as ice shattering. It made Yi Qian's curiosity explode. She also understood why her grandfather had said that she wanted to see Nian Nian. The two of them would definitely become good friends. Grandpa is wise and mighty. She wanted to be good friends with Nian Nian now, but she didn't know if Nian Nian would want to be good friends with her. Catch! Nian Nian threw the nunchaku in his hand. After completing a roundhouse kick, he caught the nunchaku firmly with one hand. With the nunchaku, she was like a tiger that had grown wings. She could use both guns and sticks. Nunchaku were popular because of its flexibility. Good people could turn the nunchaku into the best weapon in their hands. The sticks that were thrown out would only hit the enemy's hand and not hurt themselves. Nian Nian was a SWAT officer who knew how to use sticks. At this moment, she treated the dagger in the opponent's hand as if it was nothing. In a low voice, she said, "I've tolerated you for a long time." The nunchaku in her hand was so fast that it left afterimages. She hit the Western man's arm again and again. Chapter 4063. With a weapon in hand, the first thing Nyen did was to twist the dagger out of her opponent's hand. She went from dodging passively to attacking. The chain in the middle of her nunchaku instantly locked onto the dagger, and with a twist, the extremely sharp dagger was flung out of her hand. The dagger flashed coldly under the streetlight, drawing an arc in the air before finally falling to the side of the road with a clang. After Yi Qian glanced at it, she walked over and picked up the dagger. It just so happened that the weapon in her hand had been used as a rope. She could use it as a weapon for self-defense for the time being. She wasn't afraid of leaving fingerprints on it. She just needed to keep it for the time being. On the other hand, Nyen exploded. She whipped the man's arms like they were gluten. Yi Qian could clearly hear the muffled sound of bones being hit. Even his arms hurt. Although the man didn't scream out in pain, Yi Qian could tell he was in pain from the muffled groans that came from his throat from time to time. How could it not hurt? Nyen, who had a belly full of anger, used all her strength to hit him. Other than hitting his head, there was no other place that she didn't hit. Grandpa, you have a discerning eye for heroes. Nyen is pretty good. Even if I can't be Big Brother's girlfriend, I really want to be friends with her. She's too good. Yi Qian watched as Nyen beat up the Western man who had taken the initiative to attack with all his might just because he had a dagger in his hand. He couldn't resist at all. She had met and sparred with women who knew how to fight before, but she had never met one in China. Or rather, she had never met one in her surroundings. Now that she had met one, she wanted to befriend Yi Qian even more. Nyen only knew that the person who helped her was also a woman, but she didn't recognize Yi Qian. Right now, she only knew that she had to beat the guy who dared to hurt people with a gun in China until he lost all his arrogance. That was too much. Coming to China to behave atrociously, did he think the Chinese police were just decorations? Fred's legs and arms were already in pain from the beating. When he raised his leg again, Nyen dodged to the side, and the nunchaku in his hand hit Fred's calf again. When Fred retracted his leg, his whole leg was numb. Arrogant? Arrogant? Come, let's try again. She tightened her grip on the nunchaku with both hands. Under the street lamp, the nunchaku made of stainless steel emitted a cold light that made people feel afraid. The cold light swept past Nyen's eyes, making this lively and cheerful female special police officer have a bit of hostility that would make criminals afraid. She didn't speak in English. Instead, she spoke in a Beijing dialect. Her tone was cold and languid, which made Yi Jian's lips curl up even more. It was the anniversary of the female SWAT officer. She was really looking forward to becoming friends with her. Both his hands and feet were hit by the nunchaku, and his bones were aching. He wanted to retreat. He gently swung his right leg that was hit by the nunchaku and looked around. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw his companion lying motionless in the middle of the road, just under the street lamp's light. Fred's heart sank. He didn't move at all. Had he been taken care of by the Chinese policewoman? Not taken care of, but unable to move. Because if he moved, his neck would be tightened by the silver wire. The more he moved, the tighter it would get. The Western man who was subdued by Yi Qian didn't dare to move at all. Right now, he only hoped that everything would end quickly. Fred didn't know whether his companion was dead or alive, but he knew that he had to retreat. Chapter 4064. He glanced at the other policewoman who didn't make a move. Then he looked at the unguarded left side. Just as he was about to retreat to the left, he heard the policewoman standing next to him say coldly, "You want to escape from the left? You won't be able to escape anywhere tonight." Yi Qian saw through his plan and said in English with a faint smile, "Injuring people with a gun in our country is a violation of our country's laws. Do you think we will let you leave the scene? Do you think the law enforcement officers in our country are all dolls? Pretty but easy to hit?" Yi Qian said. Nyen blinked. This voice, this person. Nyen's eyes widened. This. Wasn't this the Yi Qian that she felt it was a pity that she couldn't get his contact number? In other words, she was the one who helped him all the way. Nian Enian smiled, but before her smile could fully fill her eyes, they dimmed. It was all because of her that Yi Qian lost a family member. Although Yi Qian said that the responsibility wasn't hers, she was in charge of the security of the train station. Although Brother Lu also said that the responsibility wasn't hers, she couldn't get over it. Tonight, she helped her escape danger again. Sigh, she didn't know how to thank her. Nian Junyan pursed her lips. She quickly put away all the complicated feelings in her heart. Now was not the time to think about other things, but to capture this guy who had nowhere to run and bring him back to the station for interrogation. Want to run? No way. Fred, who wanted to run, was angry. He had just thought of it, but before he could do anything, he was exposed. It seemed that the two policewomen were determined to arrest him. Fred knew that their plan had completely failed this time. Since he couldn't escape, then Fred, who wanted to escape, changed his target and set his sights on Yi Qian. If he couldn't escape, then he could only take a hostage and leave. Yes, he wanted to take Yi Qian, a female Special Forces soldier who was more powerful than Nian Enian. Yi Qian saw this and wanted to laugh. Did she really look easy to bully? He couldn't beat Nian Enian, so he targeted her? Then she wouldn't be polite. When Nian Enian saw him, she shouted, "Be careful," and rushed over. She was afraid that the other party would hurt Yi Qian. But very soon, her eyes widened even more. Because the tall and burly man rushed over. Then, she saw Yi Qian run up to the wheel of the overturned car. She then saw her entire body leap into the air. Her straight leg was extremely sharp and ruthless. She used the back of her foot to viciously sweep the side of the man's face. Bang! Fred, whose head had been ruthlessly swept away, fell to the ground instantly. He didn't even have time to react before he was knocked down by Yi Qian's kick. Yi Qian landed on the ground. Her long and slender legs were slightly spread apart. Her hands were clasped together, one in front of the other. Her sharp and cold gaze did not carry a trace of warmth as it swept over the Western man who had a concussion. If she didn't guess wrongly, this guy wanted to take her hostage to force Nian Nian to let him go. Unfortunately, he had miscalculated. Nian Nian was shocked. She was shocked by Yi Qian's incomparably dashing side kick in the air. Yi Qian. Yi Qian. So powerful. He was simply too dashing. He was so dashing that he had instantly kicked out her biological brother, Zhou Huaixing, who had always been number one in her heart. Yi Qian had become number one in her heart. Chapter 4065. Nian Enian, who was standing at the side, had all her attention on Yi Qian. Her eyes sparkled like the stars in the sky. She stared at Yi Qian without blinking. Even when she saw Yi Qian walking towards her, she did not regain her senses. Yi Qian stood in front of Nian Enian. He saw the young and beautiful girl staring at him with her bright and clear eyes. He saw that her eyes were filled with his own image, and he also saw the shock in her eyes. Yi Qian could not help but smile. She waved her hand in front of Zhou Anian's eyes and said with a smile, "Are you all right? I've already called the police. Your colleagues should be here soon. Do you have handcuffs on you? Cuff him so that he won't escape." He wanted to escape just now, but he miscalculated. Nian Enian blinked and slowly regained her senses at Yi Qian's clear and melodious voice. She looked at the man who was lying on the ground, unable to get up, and then looked at Yi Qian. Then she stretched out her hand and gave him a thumbs up. Her face was still filled with shock as she praised, "Amazing, amazing, too amazing. I've seen everything in my life. I'm completely stunned." Nian Enian was a very straightforward girl from the capital. She spoke her mind and was not coy or pretentious. She had already kicked her brother out of her heart and was completely convinced by Yi Qian. Convinced, truly convinced. It could not be helped. This was the first time she had seen a girl who could fight so well. She had thought that she was one of the best, but compared to Yi Qian, she was nothing. She was too far behind. When an expert fought, even an outsider would be able to see through it. Moreover, she was not an outsider. Yi Jian's moves were all about taking other people's lives. They were extremely ferocious killing moves. She did not put on a show, nor did she mean to scare people. Every move she made was murderous. Until now, there was still a trace of murderous aura that had not spread out from her body. Her elder brother always said that she had little experience. Even if she was a special police officer now, she was still an entry-level special police officer. If she hadn't done a few big cases, escaped from death a few times, and stepped on a few warm blood, she wouldn't be a real special police officer. Now, she vaguely understood what Big Brother meant. Yi Qian in front of her was probably a female soldier who had stepped on warm blood a few times. Even though she was just a student, her killing intent already told her that she was a female student who had experienced major events. Yi Qian liked the purity in Yan Anian's eyes. It was a very pure kind of purity, like a crystal that could clearly see both sides of a matter. Hearing this, her eyebrows curved into a smile. She also gave Yan Anian a thumbs up and praised, "You are also the best special police officer I have ever seen in my life. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Do we need to praise each other?" Yan Anian smiled. She had a mouth of white teeth that were as white as a pearl shell. When she smiled, her delicate face became even brighter. Her smile was so bright and so were her eyes. This kind of Yan Anian made Yi Qian's impression of her become even better. Some friends did not need to spend a long time together. A few minutes of eye contact, a few minutes of working together, and a few minutes of conversation, and one would know that this was a friend worth making. Yan Anian in Yi Qian was a friend worth making. Yi Qian in Yan Anian was the same. Chapter 4066. The two young and capable girls stood under the dim street light, but they could see the sincerity in each other's eyes. They looked at each other and smiled. They had the same bright eyes and white teeth, and the same clear smile. Years of friendship were like wine, and the longer they stayed together, the richer it became. Yan Anian and Yi Qian were polar opposite. Yan Anian was lively, and she was full of energy even when she was dealing with things. She was like a luminous body that would never lose its source of light. You never had to worry about her losing her source of light one day. You only had to worry about the day when the source of light that was full of energy disappeared, and the days after that would be filled with endless darkness. On the other hand, Yi Qian had a gentle and reserved personality. He looked like a gentle and reserved person, but in reality, he was stubborn and would never admit defeat easily. She wasn't a luminous body, but people could feel the power coming from her. It was a kind of power that with her around, hope would be there. Yan Anian squatted down and looked at the Western man who had been kicked to the ground by Yi Qian. She thought to herself, could he have been kicked to the point of meeting God by Yi Qian? She was afraid that the Western man would really meet God, so she quickly rolled his eyelids. Fortunately, his eyeballs were still there, and they didn't roll back. She then checked his neck artery. His pulse was still there. It seemed like he had just fainted. Well, it wasn't a normal fainting either. He definitely had a concussion. Don't worry, he won't die. I held back 30% of my strength because I was afraid that if he really met God with his own kick, you wouldn't be able to interrogate him. Yi Qian squatted down and smiled at Yan Anian. He then used his hands to check the man's body. There was nothing under his clothes. There wasn't even a passport to prove his identity. These people are basically illegal immigrants, so they don't have passports on them. Yan Anian saw that Yi Qian was about to search the Western man's pockets. She smiled and said, "We can't find anything on them. We can only take photos and enter the database to look for traces." After she finished speaking, her expression became serious. What I don't quite understand is that although our Zhou family has many enemies and there are more than 1 or 2 families who want to kill us, it's a little strange this time. Why did they send a few foreigners to kill me? The starting point is also very strange. Generally speaking, I can understand shooting and killing my dad. After all, my dad has killed too many bad guys. I can understand killing my mother. After all, the lawyer hired by the bad guys will eventually be defeated by my mother's iron teeth. I can understand killing my brother. He's the same as my father. Too many bad guys have fallen in his hands. So, killing my father, my mother, and my brother. I can understand it, but I don't understand why they want to kill me. Don't tell me you're referring to the saying, "Pick on the soft persimmons"? That can't be. Killing me is meaningless to those bad guys who do bad things in the underworld. I haven't been in the industry for long, and I haven't even encountered a big case. Why would someone want to get rid of me? Yi Qian could already hear fine beads of sweat forming on his back. The Zhou family had more than 1 or 2 enemies. There were many bad guys who wanted to get rid of their family. Then, they wanted to kill his father, his mother, and his brother. He could understand all of that. The only thing he couldn't understand was why they wanted to kill Nian. Grandpa, the girl you have your eyes on is very strong. Chapter 4067. Nian didn't see Yi Qian. She secretly wiped her forehead. She was half squatting as she racked her brains. She couldn't think of anything even when she heard the sirens in front of her. Nian stood up when the sirens sounded. She reached out her hand to pull up Yi Qian, who was squatting with her. Unexpectedly, Yi Qian also stood up and reached out his hand to pull up Nian. The 2 girls reached out their hands at the same time. Seeing this, they couldn't help but laugh. It seemed like they were used to taking care of others in their daily lives. The Western man, who was tied up by Yi Qian, heard the sirens and came over. His eyes didn't flash with panic, but relief. He finally didn't have to be tied up like this. The SWAT team arrived in their cars. One car stopped at the back to block the road, while the other continued to drive forward and stopped in front of the car that Yi Qian had knocked over. The other car stopped in between the 2 police cars, which was equivalent to a triangular alert. The fully armed SWAT team got out of the car with guns in their hands. The first SWAT team walked over to the man who was tied up and didn't dare to move. He looked at the man whose leg was tied up and frowned. "Foreigner? Nian, why are you being chased by foreigners?" he asked his colleague beside him. "You'll have to ask Zhou Nian himself." The SWAT team member who spoke lifted his leg and kicked the Western man's leg twice. He said fiercely, "F***ck, you came to our country to behave atrociously. You even brought a gun. You must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. This kind of person should be shot dead." His kick made the Western man, whose mouth was full of sand, move. His body didn't move, but his leg that was tied up moved. As his leg moved, the silver wire around his neck tightened. It was so tight that he had to take deep breaths of oxygen to not suffocate. Seeing this, the 2 SWAT team members who were holding Type 95 assault rifles sneered. They had already noticed that the Western man's body was tied up with thin silver and steel wires. This was the best way to tie someone up. If he wanted to escape, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he strangled himself to death. They didn't want to immediately untie this Western man who had come to China to cause trouble. With assault rifles in hand, they spread out and stood about a meter away from the man, keeping watch. The 3 special police officers in the bulletproof police car parked in the middle jumped out of the car and held their guns on alert. 4 SWAT officers got out of the police car parked at the front. 2 of them were armed, and the other 2 walked towards Nian and Yi Qian. Nian looked at the 2 figures walking over and said to Yi Qian, "The one on the left is my brigade leader, and the one on the right is my colleague." Yi Qian looked at the heavily guarded surroundings and said to Nian, "I still have to catch an early morning flight tomorrow. I'll be leaving in a bit, so I won't be able to go back to the brigade with you all to make a statement. Your car is in such a state. If you don't come back to the brigade with us, how are we going to get you repaired? The main point of the anniversary was how to get Yi Qian's car fixed. Yi Qian looked at the deformed car in front of him and felt a little troubled. This car belonged to the security company. It was really hard to explain to the security company that it was damaged like this, but this car had been specially modified. It wasn't very appropriate to let the SWAT team repair it. She had to ask someone first. Who should she ask? Yi Qian thought for a while and said to Nian, I'll make a call and ask. This car will probably be repaired elsewhere. It won't be sent to the SWAT team. Chapter 4068. Seeing that Nian's captain and her colleagues were approaching, Yi Qian pointed across the road. I'm going to make a call. You talk to your colleagues first. She had to contact Major General Yang and see if he had any good suggestions. Yi Qian went to the other side of the road to contact Major General Yang. The captain of the SWAT team glanced at the slender figure walking past him. He glanced at the pants the figure was wearing and narrowed his sharp eyes slightly. Chao Huainian had told him that Nian had a colleague coming to help, but he didn't say it was a female comrade. Now that he looked at her, he could tell that she wasn't a colleague. Her pants were obviously a military uniform. She was from the military, not the police. The SWAT colleague who came with an assault rifle looked at the Western man whose eyes were tightly shut and joked with Zhou Nian. You're so capable. You even got a foreigner to help. If I was capable, I would have blown their heads off long ago, Nian answered her colleague with some regret. You're quite capable. We haven't been chased by foreigners with guns. You've only been here for less than a month, and you've already been chased by foreigners with guns. You've broken our team's record. The captain also joked, look at how you're standing. It's obvious that you're not injured. Not bad, you did a good job. The captain didn't express any concern. They had encountered too many situations like this. They didn't need to show any concern. It was fine as long as she could stand properly and didn't have many holes in her body. Now that you mention it, I feel that I'm quite capable. Nian laughed. 3 cars attacked me and I almost died. Thanks to, she pointed at Yi Jian and praised. It's all thanks to her. I feel that if she were to be attacked by 3 vehicles alone, she wouldn't even need anyone's help. She could defeat all of them by herself. Hey, this guy was kicked in the head by her. He didn't even make a sound before he fainted. I saw his mouth open so wide that you could stuff a duck egg in it. She's better than you. The captain squatted down and clamped the criminal's chin with one hand. He tilted his head left and right and looked up at Nian. He fainted with one kick and got a concussion. A concussion is a concussion. We were merciful enough that we didn't kill them all. Nian wasn't worried about being held responsible. He frowned and said to his captain, these 2 are foreigners. I don't understand why these foreigners want to kill me. It's normal to get rid of you. Your brother told me that you're the weakest in your family. If he doesn't target you, who else would he target? The captain laughed. It was clearly a very dangerous matter, but in their mouths, it was just a small matter that could be brushed aside with a single stroke. As long as they were alive, everything else was trivial to them. Zhou Huaixing offended Nian with just one sentence. Xiuxiu's brows furrowed even tighter. I don't think this matter is that simple. We have to pry open their mouth. As long as they're alive, it's only a matter of time before we pry open their mouths. Ask that female comrade to come over. We'll ask her a few questions. When Nian heard this, he immediately waved his hand. Don't, Captain. He gestured for the captain to go to the side and talk. He walked to the side and then whispered, she's a military academy student and her family is quite powerful. She's definitely fine. Don't ask any more. If she didn't help me tonight, I might not have survived. Also, she has to catch a flight back to school tomorrow morning. Let her go after she finishes her call. Chapter 4069. Nien Enian felt that since Yi Qian had specifically told her that it was inconvenient for her, then she had to fight for Yi Qian. The most important thing was, when the police car's headlights shone on her, she saw that Yi Jian's eyes were obviously bloodshot. There was also a faint sadness between her eyebrows that she probably didn't even notice. Nien Junyan lowered her head and couldn't help but purse her lips tightly. Yi Qian's family had just passed away a few days ago. With her bloodshot eyes, she probably couldn't sleep well. She didn't want to keep her up too late, so it was better to go home and rest early. She couldn't tell the brigade leader these things. She couldn't even mention what happened at the hospital that night, so she couldn't tell the brigade leader too clearly. She could only remind him about Yi Qian's family background. Hopefully it would be useful. When the brigade leader heard that it was a military academy cadet, he looked Nien Nien up and down a few times before looking at the cadet who was still on the phone. He asked, "Could it be that the military academies and police academies nowadays only have female comrades who are capable? You're from the police academy and now you're from the military academy. What, are you looking down on us girls?" Nien Anian's delicate brows furrowed. She glanced at Yi Qian and continued to discuss with her brigade leader. Look, she had nothing to do with tonight. She could have just stood by and watched, but she didn't. She did me such a big favor. She saved my life, Captain. She already said that she has to catch a flight back to school tomorrow morning. You don't have to do the routine here. Just ask her a few questions here and there. Don't make her go to the brigade. She has a powerful family background. I'm afraid that if someone from her family comes, our SWAT team will continue to alert the higher-ups. Captain, you should listen to me this time. You can't go wrong. The brigade leader saw that she was so protective, afraid that he would make things difficult for her savior. He couldn't help but laugh. If she doesn't have a powerful family background, can she afford to drive a bulletproof car? He gripped the rifle in his hand and looked back. He saw the female military academy student with a powerful family background walking over from the opposite side of the road. Just a few questions. It'll be done in 3 to 5 minutes. Nien Anian heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. He smiled like a flower and said, "Okay, thank you, Captain." The captain could not help but shake his head and laugh when he saw her being chased by foreigners with guns and trying to kill her. She was so calm that nothing happened to her at all. None of the members of the Zhou family were cowards. Be it Zhou Huainian, Nien Nien, or the other elites of the Zhou family, all of them were formidable. He was indeed powerful, but the risk he had to take was also very high. Even the foreigners had taken out their guns and pointed them at Nien Nien. Chao Huainian's side would definitely get involved in this matter, not to mention Bureau Chief Zhou. They should investigate this matter thoroughly. If they left it unsettled, it would only secretly encourage their arrogance. Seeing that the captain had relented, Nien Junyan climbed up with a smile. "Captain, about her car, let our team fix it. We can't possibly ask her to pay for the repairs herself. The interior of her car is of high quality. I'm afraid our team won't be able to fix it. We'll have to go somewhere else to fix it. If she has to pay for it, you'll have to bear it yourself. Prepare more money. Don't be short of money by the time it's over." The brigade leader saw that she was scheming and deliberately tried to scare her. "Don't think about the team. It's obvious that this is a personal grudge. Moreover, it's all after work. It has nothing to do with the team." Chapter 4070. When Nien Anian heard that the team wasn't responsible for repairing the car, she didn't care about her own car. She was willing to sacrifice herself to repair it. But Yi Qian's car had to be repaired, and it was a bulletproof car. Even if she wanted to repair it outside, she needed a place to collect it. Although Yi Qian said that her car might not be repaired by the SWAT team, she still had to be prepared. What if she needed to be repaired by the SWAT team? "Captain, you're wrong. Although I'm off duty, It's hard to say whether or not this is a personal grudge. When I heard the gunshots, I thought that I would rather sacrifice myself than let them hurt innocent people. Look at my resolve. I always put the safety of the people first. Just based on this, the team should praise me, right? And, she wanted to continue, but the captain felt a headache coming on. Why did he feel that this Unyielding was a miser? When money was mentioned, her little face tensed up. Don't say anything else. She's already done with the phone call. I'll go ask her. The captain quickly interrupted Unyielding and walked from the dark corner of the lamppost to the dim light so that Yi Qian could see him at a glance. Yi Qian had already finished talking with Major General Yang. When he saw Zhou Yinyan and the captain talking to each other, a faint smile appeared on his face. Unyielding was quite cautious. She was afraid that the foreign man who had fainted from her kick would hear something. The captain asked Zhou Yinyan to stand behind him. When Yi Qian came over, he took the initiative to extend his hand. Hello, I'm Zhou Yinyan's captain, Jiang Yu. Thank you for your help tonight. It's our responsibility to maintain social stability. Captain Jiang, you're welcome. Yi Qian reached out and shook hands with him. They both let go politely and said, Since Captain Jiang and your team are already here, there's nothing for me to do here. Sorry, I still need to ask a few routine questions. I hope you can forgive me. Captain Jiang smiled and said, It's only a matter of 3 to 5 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm delaying you. Zhou Yinyan, who was standing behind Jiang Yu, was gesturing to Yi Qian. Her mouth was also open. Although she didn't say anything, Yi Qian understood her meaning from the shape of her mouth. What he meant was that she had to hand the car over to the SWAT team for repair. Yi Qian winked at her, then politely said to Captain Jiang, who was dressed in a SWAT uniform, We're just waiting for our side to send a car over to tow my car away. It won't take up much of our time. Captain Jiang turned to Unyielding and said, Are you relieved now? You don't have to worry about not having a place to fix your car. There's a place to fix the car. That's my responsibility too. Unyielding was worried that Yi Qian would be criticized. That license plate number was obviously from the military. How was she going to explain to her superiors that she had wrecked a military vehicle? Hearing this, Yi Qian smiled. She could tell that Unyielding was worried. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll feel more at ease if I bring it back for repair. Unyielding's heart calmed down a little. She still had something to say, but her captain still needed to ask a few routine questions. She pursed her lips and let the captain ask the questions first. She didn't ask anything else. First, she asked Yi Qian where he saw her, where she came from, and if there were any other suspicious points. Just as Captain Jiang said, it would only take 3 to 5 minutes. Chapter 4071. All right, we don't have any problems here. Thank you for your cooperation. Captain Jiang asked briefly and did not say anything else. Tonight, it was all thanks to the cadet in front of him that Zhou Yinyan was fine. He did not have anything else to ask, so he mainly asked about Unyielding. Unyielding saw this and immediately pulled Yi Qian to the side. She first looked at Yi Qian discreetly. Seeing the faint smile on his face, she could not tell if he had been criticized in the report just now. Unyielding asked in a low voice, You really won't be criticized when you go back? There are many rules in the military. If you are not careful, you will step on a minefield. You were driving a bulletproof car. Are you sure you will be fine after getting hit like this? She was already in a bad mood after the death of her family. If she caused Yi Qian to be criticized by his superior because of her, she would have to consider asking Yi Qian for punishment. Yi Qian saw that she was so worried about him. He pursed his lips and said, I will be fine. Don't worry. When you go back, you should investigate who they are and why there are foreigners watching you. Think about whether you have offended anyone recently. Although you've just started working, those who seek revenge won't stop seeking revenge just because you've just started working. Yi Qian, who liked Zhou Nian a lot, could not help but say a few more words. Nian could not help but laugh. Those who don't know would think you are my sister. I am clearly older than you. I am very sure that I have not offended anyone recently, but I am not sure about my family members. So, I said that they saw that they could not do anything to my father, mother, or brother, so they specifically targeted me. Offending people will probably only happen after I have worked for a while longer. Right now, I am only in charge of security in places with high traffic. At most, I will offend a few pickpockets. It is normal for pickpockets to hate us after being caught, but I don't think they have the ability to go overseas and ask foreigners to take revenge on me with guns. You, don't worry about me. I will definitely investigate thoroughly. Just now, my colleagues were all laughing at me. I am the first one to have provoked foreigners to take revenge on me. So what if we offend someone? In our line of work, it would be strange if we didn't offend someone. Nian wasn't worried that something like today would happen again. Being hunted down wasn't something she could avoid even if she worried about it. Today's incident was a reminder to her. She had to be more vigilant before she investigated the matter. However, this made her consider getting a gun after work and see if she could apply for one. Yi Qian, on the other hand, felt something flash through her mind when she heard Nian say, "I'm only in charge of the security of the areas with dense traffic." It was too fast. Just as she was about to catch it, it disappeared again. Nian said, "Yi Qian, what's your cell phone number? Can you give it to me? Can't we just be friends? I quite like your character." "You beat me to it. I wanted to ask for your phone number to make friends." Yi Qian didn't spend any more effort to think about what had just flashed through her mind. She also wanted to make friends with Nian, so she quickly gave her phone number. Nian, who was taking her phone out of her pocket, paused. She raised her hand and slapped her forehead. "Look at me, I left my phone in the car. I'll give you my number and you can call me." Nian entered her phone number and dialed it. The two girls, who were quite skilled in martial arts, exchanged their contact information. For a long time after that, other than in Jiasin, Yi Qian was her other best friend. Chapter 4072. Yi Qian followed her advice and dialed Nian's number. When the call was connected, they looked at each other and smiled. Nian wanted to ask Yi Qian if he was feeling better, but when she saw the gentle smile on Yi Qian's face, she swallowed her questions. Don't ask. If she continued to ask, she would be tearing at the scars on Yi Qian's heart. It would remind her of her deceased family again, and it would make her miss them again. It was better not to ask. It was good to chat with her. Nian was a kind girl. She couldn't bear to break the smile on Yi Qian's face, so she started a casual conversation. "The next time we meet, how about we arrange a place to spar? When I was in the police academy, I could beat you in a 1-on-6 fight. When I joined our team, I had a hard time winning 1-on-1 fights, let alone 1-on-6 fights. Our team leader even said that I'm not bad. If I train with them for a year and a half, I'll definitely win 1-on-2 fight. Sigh, my ambition isn't to win 1-on-2 fights, but to win 3-on-2 fights. I even boasted to my brother that I'll win 1-on-3 fights in a year and 1-on-6 fights in 2 years. If I can only win 1-on-2 fights in a year and a half, I'll lose face." I was about to lose my confidence, but now that I see you. Nian's smile grew brighter and brighter. Yi Qian couldn't help but ask her, "Now that you see me, you're confident again." That's right. I'll fight 1-on-6 fights in 2 years. Ha, then the male police officers in our team will be even more proud. Yi Qian shook his head and corrected her seriously. "You should be saying that you'll lose face." Nian was laughing so hard that her shoulders were twitching. 1-on-6? She wasn't afraid of being laughed at, but it was indeed her dream. She still had to have a dream. What if it came true? A colleague from the SWAT team jogged over. They were prepared to bring the man, who was tied so tightly that he would break if he struggled, back to the car. However, they could not untie the silver wire even after trying for a long time. After reporting to Captain Jiang Yu, they came to look for Yi Qian. Yi Qian immediately went over to the Western man's back and untied him a few times. He quickly untied the silver thread and put it back into his hand. At this moment there were 2 thin and deep marks on the Western man's neck. The Western man, who no longer had to worry about suffocation after his neck was solved, refused to be handcuffed. He was then ruthlessly pinched to the ground by a male SWAT officer. His face was rubbed against the clear road as he used force to twist the man's hands behind his back and handcuffed him. Seeing that he couldn't break free, the Western man began to curse again. Relying on his identity as a foreigner, his words were full of contempt for the Chinese special forces. Hearing this, Nian Nian's face turned cold. She looked around, then ran to the green belt, grabbed 2 handfuls of grass, and stuffed them into the man's mouth. Hatefully, he said, "You're still so arrogant after coming here to kill people? Do you want to be extradited back to your country? Let me tell you, no way. Nothing good can come out of a dog's mouth. You still want to apply for asylum? You're directly endangering our country's national security and violating the personal rights of our citizens. You still want to protect us? International law doesn't protect people like you, okay?" When Yi Qian saw that Nian Nian had done the same thing as him, the smile in his eyes overflowed. She was very sincere. No wonder Grandpa said that she was very suitable for Big Brother. Chapter 4073. Big Brother's personality was too cold as a snowy mountain. If there was a cheerful girl by his side, it would definitely bring a lot of warmth to Big Brother's life. Grandpa was good at judging people, especially people. If he felt that Nian Nian was suitable for Big Brother, then she was definitely suitable. But Grandpa couldn't decide this kind of thing. It mainly depended on the person involved. It had to be Nian Nian who didn't have a boyfriend, Nian Nian who liked Big Brother, and Big Brother who liked Zhou Nian. The Western man who stuffed a handful of grass and soil into his mouth kept spitting. A SWAT officer who escorted him into the car said sternly, "We'll only stuff a handful of grass into your mouth now, we'll stuff a bullet in your mouth later. If he scolds again, we'll give him a bullet." Nian Nian's voice was even harsher than the male SWAT officer's. She glared at the Western man who sat in the car and saw a strange and eerie smile in his eyes. Nian Nian didn't avert her gaze because of this, but looked back at him with an even fiercer aura. She only retracted her gaze when she saw the astonishment in his eyes. Was he trying to scare her? Who was he trying to scare? The Western man who was kicked unconscious by Yi Qian was sent to the ambulance. Of course, the Chinese SWAT officers accompanied him the entire time and handcuffed his hand. The 2 Western men were escorted away, but the guy in the car who was hit by Yi Qian's car escaped. Zhou Nian didn't say anything to Yi Qian. He said softly to Captain Jiang, "This is my problem, it has nothing to do with her. Don't bother her anymore." Moreover, her family had just passed away 2 days ago. How could she worry about other things when she was still grieving? The car sent by the SWAT officers hadn't arrived yet, and Nian Nian hadn't left yet. Captain Jiang sent a car and 2 SWAT officers to accompany Yi Qian while he went back to the brigade first. The interrogation would definitely last through the night, so Nian Nian didn't have to think about going home. She had to go back to the brigade later. Yi Qian, who Zhou Nian had purposely brought to a dark corner, watched the entire process. The more he watched, the more he liked Zhou Nian. He was generous, decent, and efficient. She couldn't help but want to ask a very personal question. Although she really wanted to ask, Yi Qian didn't say anything until he left with the guards. She wanted to ask Nian Nian if she had a boyfriend, but considering their current relationship, it would be rude to ask such a question, so she suppressed her urge to ask. Poking his head out of the car, Yi Qian smiled and waved at the girl who was still standing under the streetlight, watching him leave. He smiled brightly and said, "Keep in touch when you have time." Her voice was like the cool summer breeze, but also like the gentleness of spring. Nien couldn't help but smile. He waved his hand and replied, "Okay, let's keep in touch when we're free." She could feel that Yi Qian had a good impression of her, and this kind of good impression was mixed with admiration. Coincidentally, she also admired Yi Qian and had a good impression of him. This friend, she was definitely going to befriend him this year. Nien, who had saved Yi Qian's number on his phone, happily got into the police car and returned to the brigade with his colleagues. At this moment, she began to calm down and think about why a foreigner would come after her with a gun. Yi Qian was talking to Major General Yang on the phone. "I'm already in the car. I'm preparing to go home now and catch the flight to school tomorrow morning." "Okay, then you should go and rest early. If there are any new developments in the National Defense investigation, I'll inform you immediately. We can confirm that the murderer who killed Principal Chen is a member of an illegal foreign organization, but the scope of the investigation is too broad, and the investigation will take a long time. After you return to school, try not to go out. If you find any suspicious foreign personnel, immediately inform us." As soon as Major General Yang finished speaking, Yi Qian, who was leaning against the seat, suddenly straightened his back. Member of an illegal foreign organization. She finally understood what was wrong when she was talking to Nien. Chapter 4074. At first, Zhou Nien had said that other than her, it was normal for her family to be targeted. She had only started working for a few days and hadn't even encountered a major case, yet she was targeted by foreigners. Even Nien herself found it hard to believe. Later, Nien said that she didn't have any enemies. Other than catching a few pickpockets, she didn't do anything else. But what if Nien was implicated because of Uncle Chen's murder? What if she was targeted by a foreign organization? Wouldn't that be a better explanation? Yi Qian grasped the crux of the matter. When he spoke again, his voice was as cold as ice. "Major General, the female SWAT officer I helped tonight was on duty at the train station when Uncle Chen was murdered." Major General Yang was still at work on the other end of the phone. After the Spring Festival, there were many things that needed to be done. Major General Yang walked out of the military headquarters every day until around midnight. He was holding the phone in one hand and reading documents with a pen in the other. When he heard Yi Qian's words, his expression became serious. He asked in a deep voice, "What are you trying to say?" Xiao Yi must have discovered something. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suddenly mentioned it. She encountered 2 foreigners with guns tonight. She told me that ever since she started working, she hasn't been involved in any major cases, and she hasn't offended anyone. Other than her parents and brother, she doesn't have any grudges. She also told me that she found a few foreigners to seek revenge. She couldn't figure it out herself. She guessed that it might be her parents' and brother's enemies who targeted her. "Major General, do you think it's possible that these people targeted Nien because she accidentally saw the murderer at the scene when Uncle Chen was murdered? If that's the case, it would explain why Nien was targeted by a few foreigners." Yi Qian slowly voiced his suspicions. He sorted out the seemingly unrelated matters and found a common point of entry. Then, the unrelated matters would be related. Nien was attacked by 2 foreigners with guns. Moreover, they were foreigners with a certain level of skill. Even she herself couldn't understand it. However, now that this matter overlapped with Uncle Chen's case, it made sense. Major General Yang didn't immediately agree with her analysis. He put down the pen in his hand and asked, "Who are Nien's parents? Who was Big Brother? Did you understand it just now?" "I don't know who her parents are, but she mentioned her brother, Zhou Huainian. She also mentioned her mother. She said that countless lawyers hired by bad guys were defeated by her mother's sharp teeth." Yi Qian paused for a moment, then said, "I have Nien's contact number. If you want to know more, I can contact her immediately. Good. You're contacting Anniversary now. Besides, what you said isn't impossible. The two of them have been taken away by the SWAT team. They are relatively safe and reliable. Tell Zhou Nianyan and tell her all your guesses. Since she's a special police officer, she should be sharp. I'll check who Chao Huainian is first. Based on what she said, his parents and elder brother should have a certain status. Although what Yi Qian said was still a guess, Major General Yang was used to trusting Yi Qian's intuition. He also knew that she was not one to speak without thinking. The two incidents seemed unrelated, but if you really wanted to straighten them out, the biggest connection was that Yi Qian was on duty at the scene on the day Principal Chun was killed, and she was the first SWAT officer to arrive at the scene. Chapter 4075. The foreign agents thought that Nian Nian had found the murderer and then came back to silence him. Thinking in this direction, it wasn't strange at all. Major General Yang's expression became more serious. If that was the case, it wasn't Yi Qian who was in danger, but Nian Nian who was in great danger. After ending the call, Major General Yang seized the time to investigate Chao Huainian's identity. It was relatively easy for the military to investigate a person's identity. Yi Qian immediately called Nian Nian. Zhou Nianyan, who had just arrived at Tongping Avenue, took out her cell phone from her pocket. She thought it was a call from her elder brother. When she saw the caller ID, Zhou Nianyan smiled and answered the call with a brisk voice. "Hello, Yi Jin. You're here so soon?" "No, I'm still in the car. I found something suspicious and wanted to talk to you about it." Yi Qian didn't immediately ask who Zhou Nianyan's parents were. Instead, he told Zhou Nianyan his guess. Nian Nian was afraid that her colleagues sitting next to her would overhear, so she leaned against the car and covered her cell phone the whole time. As she listened, her expression became more serious. After hearing Yi Qian's guess, she really felt that it was possible. "Okay, I understand. I'll get in touch with the captain right away. I'll sort out what happened that day. If I really saw something, it'll be a good thing." Nian Nian lowered her voice and spoke to Yi Qian with a solemn expression. Outside, the light from the street lamps flashed across her face. It was half bright and half dark. Her expression revealed a rare fierceness. "Don't worry. I'll cooperate with you." Yi Qian heard this and smiled. She replied, "Okay. Thank you, Nian Nian." For some reason, even though they had only known each other tonight, she felt that Nian Nian was a reliable and trustworthy friend. That's right. Nian Nian was now her friend. She felt like old friends the moment they met. Nian Nian didn't think there was a need for a "thank you." It was within her scope of responsibility. Hearing this, she replied softly, "I've always felt guilty. If these two people are really as you say, I'll be very happy. As long as I'm fine, they won't stop. They'll definitely continue to attack. Then, I'll wait for them to come." Using himself as bait to lure the real murderer out. When Yi Qian heard this, he tightened his grip on his cell phone. Even Uncle Chun could not escape. Could Nian Nian escape? I hope not now, Nian Nian, because it's too dangerous. Yi Qian's throat was so dry that every word he said hurt. His voice was very tight. "My Uncle Chen," he didn't even avoid. Don't worry. Leave these things to us. You're still a student. Just study hard. I'll contact my captain now. You should go home and rest early. We'll talk next time." After Zhou Nianyan finished speaking, he hung up. Yi Qian listened to the beeping sound on the other end of the line. He put down his hand and pressed the phone against his forehead. If everything was as she guessed, Nian Nian's life would be in danger. Yi Qian didn't ask who Anniversary's parents were. She gripped her phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She took a deep breath and called Major General Yang. Major General Yang already knew who Nian Nian's parents were. Even though they worked under different systems, he had heard of Director Zhou Hailin from the Public Security Bureau. Chapter 4076. Zhou Huanyan's personal information had been transferred over. Major General Yang looked at it and said to Yi Qian, "Bureau Chief Zhou handles cases like a god. He has solved countless strange cases and his methods are also quite swift and decisive. When he was working in Jiangbei, the local underworld forces were all wiped out by him. It can be said that he made countless enemies." Yi Qian had never been in contact with the public security system, so he was unfamiliar with Zhou Huanyan's father, Bureau Chief Zhou Hailin. When Major General Yang mentioned him, his tone was full of admiration. He thought to himself that he would try to find out more about him online when he returned to Dangue Garden. However, there was no way to look up personal information online like in the future, so he probably wouldn't be able to find out much. A few years ago, the underworld issued a kill order with a high reward for Bureau Chief Zhou's life. In the end, his son, Zhou Huanyan, solved the case and wiped out the entire gang. Yi Qian recalled the pride in Zhou Huanyan's eyes when he mentioned Zhou Huanyan. Having such a powerful elder brother was indeed something to be proud of. On the phone, Major General Yang's voice was serious as he told Yi Qian, "If Zhou Huanyan is really implicated because of Principal Chen's case, we have to talk to Bureau Chief Zhou. Some things can't be hidden completely. We have to reveal a little. Leave this to us. You don't have to worry about it. Zhou Huanyan has been targeted, so you have to be even more careful. Nothing can happen to him. You didn't show up tonight? Did the two foreigners see you?" Yi Qian replied, "They didn't see me clearly. I didn't think of avoiding them. Zhou Huanyan was very cautious from the beginning and kept me away. During the fight, I stood in the dark and didn't show up. Later, I attacked and knocked him out. They probably didn't see me clearly." Thinking back on the whole process, Yi Qian felt that the two foreigners probably didn't see her clearly. It was late at night and they had broken 2 street lamps in advance. How could they have seen her clearly? She wasn't in danger, but Zhou Huanyan was. Yi Qian's eyes were dark. He lowered his eyes slightly and told Major General Yang his worries. "Nian is in real danger now. They didn't succeed this time, but they will try again next time. Major General, I can't harm Zhou Nian because of Uncle Chen. I'd rather let the foreign organizations know of my existence than put Zhou Nian in danger. It's true that anniversary is dangerous, but Yi Qian, we're not to be trifled with either. If the two incidents are really related, we have their people in our hands now. As for the person who escaped, I just contacted the relevant departments and they are also doing their best to track him down. We've already made our move. Those demons and monsters hiding in the dark should be even more afraid. This is our country's territory. As long as they don't leave, we will track them down. Nian is in danger, but they are also in danger. You don't have to worry too much. You should take care of yourself right now. Once the foreign organizations know of your existence, I can tell you right now that they will definitely come looking for you. The people they send to kill you won't be the small fries from tonight. We now know that these people are not simple. We will make arrangements for anniversary. You just need to take good care of yourself. Do you understand? Caution is the parent of safety. Don't be too careless." Before hanging up the phone, Major General Yang was still worried about Yi Qian and reminded her. Chapter 4077. The SWAT team quickly received orders from their superiors. The 2 cars escorting the 2 foreigners were about to drive back to the team when they made a left turn at the intersection and drove in another direction. Nian, who was still in the car, gripped her phone tightly. She looked at the phone that was burning hot from her grip. She wasn't afraid of danger, nor was she afraid that her life would be over. She was afraid that she would die while the real culprit was still alive. Now, they didn't give her a chance at all. They said that they had other arrangements and immediately made them. It happened so quickly that she couldn't react. Nian, you're in a very dangerous situation now. The other party's background is unknown. It's very likely that they're not your parents' or brother's enemies, but someone you accidentally bumped into that needs to be silenced. Don't go home for the next few days. We'll send you out of the team tonight. Didn't you say that you wanted to enter the training base your brother used to go to? We're already making the arrangements for you. Once everything is settled, you'll be sent abroad for a year of closed-door training. For a year, you'll be cut off from all contact with your family in the country. The only person who can contact you is the person in charge of the SWAT team's overseas training. 5 minutes ago, Nyen Anian received a call from the Ministry of Public Security. 5 minutes ago, she was still thinking that she could act as bait to find the murderer of Yi Qian's family. 5 minutes later, she needed to go to her brother's current unit until she went abroad. She could only obey the entire arrangement. Suddenly, she was sent abroad for training. Then, who was the murderer of Yi Qian's family? Why was the higher-up so concerned about it? Wasn't the investigation still ongoing? Weren't they still unaware of the identities of the two foreigners? Why did they suddenly arrange for her to go abroad? Wasn't this too fast? There was a limited number of places for overseas training. If she went there out of nowhere, wouldn't she snatch someone else's spot? At this moment, Nyen Anian's heart was in a mess. Her palms were sweating when she thought of something. She immediately sent Yi Qian a text message. Yi Qian, I've arranged to go abroad for a year of closed-door training. For a year, I'll cut off all contact with the country. Don't worry about me being in danger now. When Yi Qian received the message, he was still on the phone with Major General Yang. The latest news was that an adult man who had escaped from the crashed car died in a car accident 10 minutes ago. Asian face, unknown identity, unknown nationality. There were no documents that could prove his identity. He only had an assembled pistol with 6 bullets in it. Other than that, there was nothing else. Your guess may be right, but these people are not the main culprits. Now, focus on the 2 foreign men we captured and see if we can pry anything out of them. Major General Yang's stern voice came through the phone, which made Yi Qian's mouth tighten. The person who had escaped had died in a car accident. It was obvious that he had been silenced. Anniversary should be settled already. We'll send her overseas for a year of closed-door training. Their brigade already had such a plan. The application was submitted 3 days ago. Now, it's just the right time to send her abroad. When Yi Qian heard this, he immediately felt a weight lift from his heart. This was for the best. Now, it's about your safety. I haven't reported tonight's incident to Commander-in-Chief Xia. If he finds out that this group of people still dared to come out and try to silence them again, I'm afraid the situation in Beijing will change. Chapter 4078. Principal Chen had been killed because the other party had made ample preparations. In addition, no one in the military knew that Principal Chen had come to Beijing. The commander-in-chief had only harshly reprimanded the leader of the sniper base in private and did not pursue the matter. This time, it was likely that a storm was brewing. After hanging up the phone, Yi Qian finished reading Zhou Yanyan's message. Her slender fingers tapped on her phone and she replied to Zhou Yanyan's message. However, after 20 minutes, Yi Qian did not receive another message from Zhou Yanyan. When she called, she was told that her phone had been turned off. Yi Qian looked at the motionless phone. After a long while, she looked outside. At 11 o'clock at night, the streets of Beijing were no longer as noisy as they had been during the day. There were not many people on the streets, and even the streetlights seemed to have dimmed. It had always been so quiet and beautiful. However, in the dark corners that no one could see, countless sins and evils were breeding. No one knew when they would reveal their ferocious faces and destroy the original beauty. The originally peaceful and beautiful life that belonged to her had been completely destroyed by sins and evils following Uncle Chen's death. She did not know how the higher-ups would investigate. Just like when they investigated Li Chuhai, every step was extremely difficult. It could be said that every step was taken carefully, for fear of alarming old Manly, who had retreated behind the scenes. But now there wasn't even a trace of Uncle Chen's death. How long would it take to find out the truth? Once an overseas organization was involved, it would only be more difficult. Now, she hoped that tonight's incident had something to do with Uncle Chen's murderer. However, when she thought about the anniversary, she did not wish for it to be so. It was a very contradictory and complicated thought. Yi Qian, who had not slept much for the past few days, closed her eyes to hide the coldness in her eyes. She seemed to be resting with her eyes closed, but in fact, her tightly pursed lips betrayed her. Although her eyes were closed, her brain did not stop resting. It was still thinking about things. The darkness before dawn had not ended. The night was still long. After returning to Dangue Garden, Yi Qian pulled up the main switch and found that there was no one at home. She knew that old Master Fu had gone to the experimental base, but she did not know where Fu Shu had gone. Yi Qian heaved a sigh of relief when Uncle Fu was not around. After washing up, Yi Qian, who had not slept for the past few days, did not fall asleep immediately. It was not until 4 in the morning that he closed his eyes in a daze. He was woken up by the doorbell at around 8 in the morning. When Yi Qian came downstairs and saw the face on the surveillance screen, he thought for a moment, then patted his face before opening the door. When she returned to Dangue Garden, she also wondered if she could run into Qin Xiu. She didn't expect that she would really run into him. The tightly shut door opened. Qin Xiu smiled and greeted the person who opened the door. "Uncle Fu, good morning, Yi Qian." Her voice went from light and cheerful to palpitating with fear. The change in tone and rhythm happened in an instant. Qin Xiu, who was standing at the door, looked at Yi Qian. His handsome face was a little confused. He thought that Uncle Fu would be the one to open the door, but in the end, it was Yi Qian who opened the door. He was so unprepared to see her again. Yi Qian looked at the change in expression on Qin Xiu's handsome face and wanted to laugh. It was rare to see a dignified diplomat look so confused. "Good morning." She smiled and greeted him, still with a faint sense of alienation. Qin Xiu, who had calmed down, smiled slightly. He looked at Yi Qian and realized that he had disturbed her sleep. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm sorry to disturb your sleep. When did you come home?" Chapter 4079. Yi Qian glanced outside. Standing at the door wasn't a good idea, so he turned to Qin Xiu and said, "You just came back in the wee hours of the morning. Come in and have a seat." If it wasn't Qin Xiu standing at the door, Yi Qian wouldn't have opened the door so casually. Yi Qian's invitation made Qin Xiu, a diplomat who had never lost a battle of words, walk through the door and sit on the sofa. Even when Yi Qian poured a glass of water for him, Qin Xiu frantically stood up and took the glass of water like a child. In contrast, Yi Qian was much calmer. "I have something to talk to you about. Sorry, I just woke up. I'm going to wash my face and brush my teeth. You can sit down first." As if he didn't see Qin Xiu's frantic actions, Yi Qian smiled faintly and went upstairs to wash up. Qin Xiu came to the house more often than she did. He probably wouldn't feel uncomfortable sitting alone. Yi Qian didn't think Qin Xiu would feel uncomfortable, but in reality, Qin Xiu was very uncomfortable. It wasn't his first time coming to the Fu residence. When he was in his rebellious youth, the Fu residence was like his second home. When he was in his rebellious phase, the Fu residence was his favorite place to visit. Every time Grandpa Fu saw him, he would smile and ask him, "Are you hungry? If you're hungry, eat more. You'll only have the energy to continue playing when you're full. Remember to go home when you're tired. Don't play until you can't even find your way home." He would smile kindly and persuade him at a moderate pace. During that time, his family's persuasion was grating on his ears. He wouldn't listen to a single word. However, when Grandpa Fu tried to persuade him, he would listen to every single word. Sometimes, he would even talk to Grandpa Fu about himself and complain about his family. At this time, Grandpa Fu would always say to him, "Whether you listen or not is up to you. Whether you speak or not is up to your parent. You can choose not to listen or you can choose to leave. But you can't cut off a parent's concern for their children." This was the place he frequented the most during his rebellious youth. Qin Xiu put down the slightly hot porcelain cup and touched the sofa gently. He then looked at the coffee table in front of him and the TV cabinet in front of him. Everything in the Fu family was so familiar. It had not changed at all since a few years ago. The only thing that had changed was, the girl he liked was living here. In his 30 years of life, she was the only girl that had moved his heart. Unfortunately, the girl he liked didn't like him. Qin Xiu sighed softly and picked up the cup on the tea table again. He lowered his head and sipped the boiling water in the porcelain cup. The mist blurred his elegant and handsome face and the bitterness in his eyes. That year, the sun was shining brightly. Standing indoors, he saw the picturesque girl sitting outside. If he had known that he would fall in love with that girl one day, he would have walked out without hesitation. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. If he missed it, he missed it. If he missed it once, he missed it for a lifetime. Before Qin Xiu could finish the cup of water, Yi Qian, who had just finished washing up and was neatly dressed, came downstairs. Qin Xiu looked at the girl walking towards him. Seeing the faint alienation between her eyebrows, Qin Xiu suppressed the bitterness in his mouth with the water. He put down the cup and took the initiative to ask, "Sorry, I have to catch the afternoon flight. I don't have much time. Is there anything you want to discuss with me?" It was better for him to take the initiative and tell her that he wouldn't stay for too long, so she didn't have to worry. It was true that he had to catch the afternoon flight, but there was still plenty of time. He only said this to reassure her. Chapter 40. His words made Yi Qian, who was sitting up straight, pause for a moment. No wonder he was a diplomat. When he was generous and appropriate, he could make people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. If he was really pressed for time, why would he come to her house? Yi Qian didn't expose his kind words. He sat down and deliberated for a moment before saying, "About you bumping into me at the hospital a few days ago, please don't mention it to my grandfather. It's a little complicated, and I don't want him to know. I'm sorry for taking up your time because of this." She apologized sincerely. Even though she knew he was trying to resolve the awkwardness between them by saying that they were pressed for time, she still had to apologize. She was grateful for his distance and his gentlemanly demeanor. Qin Xiu's brows furrowed slightly before he let out a sigh of relief. When Yi Qian opened the door, for a moment, he thought it was really Grandpa Fu who was sick. When he saw that Uncle Fu wasn't home, he felt even more uncertain. Now that she said she needed him to hide the fact that she went to the hospital, it meant that it wasn't Grandpa Fu who was sick. If it wasn't Grandpa Fu, could it be Uncle? Qin Xiu, who had just sighed in relief, tensed up again. He stared at Yi Qian with a deep gaze. There was no trace of a smile on his elegant and handsome face. "Where's Uncle? How's his health?" "It wasn't my father either." Yi Qian immediately realized that he had misunderstood. He lowered his gaze and replied, "It wasn't my grandfather or father. Don't misunderstand." Yi Qian didn't tell Qin Xiu who it was. To her, it was a private matter. Her relationship with Qin Xiu wasn't good enough for them to talk about private matters. The dark color in Qin Xiu's eyes changed again and again as he stared at the girl sitting next to him. However, there was a sofa seat between them. His slightly pale lips were already tightly pursed. Qin Xiu remembered what she said last time. He suppressed the urge to ask who it was. He raised his hand to look at his watch and stood up gracefully. "I understand. Don't worry, I won't mention it to anyone. It's getting late. I'll make a move first. Goodbye, Yi Qian." Without waiting for Yi Qian to get up and send him off, He nodded slightly and strode out of the Fu residence. Her rejection was like a sharp blade that slashed his heart again and again until it was bleeding. It was also like a gust of wind that blew through his heart, turning his heart into a desolate desert with flying sand and stones. It was so dark that he didn't know if the sun would rise tomorrow. This heartless girl. She made it so that he couldn't get close to her, couldn't stay far from her, and couldn't even stay by her side. Then, he would just leave. He wanted to leave and see if he could forget her when he looked back. And now, please allow him to use his last bit of pride to take the initiative to say goodbye to her. Goodbye, heartless girl. I hope that one day I can forget you. I hope that one day, when I see you again, my heart will be as still as water. Qin Xiu didn't tell Yi Qian that he was about to go on a long journey to a faraway and dangerous country. He left the Fu residence and personally closed the door behind him. He retreated calmly in an instant. There was no longer any trace of the elegance from before. There was no longer any trace of the calmness from before. Even when he walked down the stairs, he staggered and almost fell down. Qin Xiu, who was always handsome and elegant, was swaying with every step he took. Every step he took seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Goodbye, Yi Qian. If I can come back alive, I hope that when the time comes, my heart will be as still as water and I will be able to face you calmly. Chapter 4081. Qin Xiu, who had walked out of the Fu family's house, turned back to look at the red walls and the white-tiled house. The smile on his face was like the thin rays of the sun. It was beautiful, but it was short-lived. Yi Qian, who was at home, heard the sound of the door being locked. His gaze fell on the porcelain cup that Qin Xiu had drunk from, and a faint smile appeared on his face. In all honesty, Qin Xiu was indeed a very good man. He was as gentle as a pearl and as gentle as a jade. He was a very good man who could take a step back and give people a more comfortable space. It was not abrupt and did not offend people. It made people feel very relieved. She admired such a good man, but that was all. She had Captain Xia, the best man in the world. Therefore, no matter how good a man appeared in front of her, he would not be as good as her Captain Xia. As long as she had Captain Xia as her lover in this life, it was enough. Yi Qian did not chase after her. He got up and picked up the porcelain cup on the coffee table and went into the kitchen. After a while, the sound of running water could be heard from the kitchen. It was time for her to go back to school. She slept until 8 o'clock and her flight was at 11:30. It should be said that she was tight on time. Due to the traffic jam, it was already 10:40 when they arrived at the airport. Yi Qian, who was holding the camouflage luggage bag, ran all the way. He checked in and ran to the security check. Fortunately, he did not miss the security check. Qin Xiu, who had also arrived at the airport and was talking to his colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, saw again the girl whom he had said goodbye 2 hours ago. He watched as she ran past him. She did not notice that he was standing beside her. Even if she looked around slightly, she could see that he was also there. The heartless girl did not see him. She ran all the way to the security check after checking in. She did not see him from the beginning to the end. At this moment, Qin Xiu was both amused and angry. He was amused because the two of them, who were obviously impossible, would always meet. He was angry because, since it was obviously impossible, why was he always able to see her? Why was she always inadvertently giving him a glimmer of light? With the light, he was like a moth flying into a flame. When we reach Melbourne, we have to go to the bathroom together. We can't get separated. A staff member from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs joked. It happens every year that people get separated after going to the bathroom. We have to avoid it. Especially our ambassador Qin. If you need to go to the bathroom, you must tell us. Qin Xiu didn't hear him. His eyes were still fixed on Yi Qian, who was in the middle of the security check. He didn't react until his colleague beside him said, Ambassador Qin. However, she didn't know what her colleagues had just said. In short, it was all irrelevant things. Important things would not be said in public. Seeing that his 3 colleagues were waiting for his answer, Qin Xiu said with a smile, "Sorry, I was distracted just now and didn't hear what you said clearly." His direct admission was met with teasing from his colleagues. "Don't tell me you were mesmerized by a beautiful girl. I didn't expect Ambassador Qin to be attracted by beauty. Our Ambassador Qin is a single aristocrat. It's normal for him to pay more attention to beautiful girls. Although there are many beautiful girls, the ambassador's mortal heart is not moved. I don't know when he will invite us to the wedding." The 3 colleagues joked with each other. Qin Xiu couldn't help but smile. He did see a very beautiful girl just now. His mortal heart had been moved long ago. However, the Prince Xiang was interested in her, but the goddess was not. If he met her in the big capital or the big airport, he wouldn't dare to go up and say hello. Chapter 4082. He didn't dare to move forward or get close. He just watched her go through the security check and enter the departure lounge. He didn't tell her where he was going, and she didn't tell him that she would be coming to the airport as well. They didn't travel together or send each other off. They were familiar with each other, but they felt like strangers. Qin Xiu smiled as he listened to his colleagues teasing him. "On my wedding day, I'll definitely invite you all to my wedding banquet. Now, let's find a place to sit and wait. We'll go together when everyone is here." This was the domestic boarding terminal, and they were going to the international boarding terminal. They still had to wait for a Chinese chef to accompany them. The weather in the capital was very good. Although the temperature was low, the sun was shining brightly outside. The people coming and going from the south to the north were either walking or stopping. They came and went in a hurry. The airport was a place of separation and reunion. Some people left and some came. Life was like that. Some people came quietly without leaving a trace, while others came quietly but left behind an eternity. Yi Qian, who was rushing back to school, didn't know that she and Qin Xiu bumped into each other at the airport. When she arrived at school, she reported first. Before she handed over her phone, she sent a message to Xia Jingyuan's personal phone. She knew he couldn't see it, but she just wanted to tell him that a new semester had begun for her. It was the second half of her 3rd year. When he left, the second half of her 2nd year hadn't started yet. The phone screen indicated that the message had been sent. Yi Qian stared at it in a daze. There was a trace of sadness in her eyes, but more than that, she was worried. She didn't know how Captain Xia was recovering. It would take more than a month for him to recover from the stab wound in his chest. During this time, he couldn't do any strenuous activities and could only rest quietly. With his illness of not moving for a day, his whole body would feel uncomfortable. She didn't know how he would be able to get through this period of lying in bed. Yi Qian, who was holding her phone, kept thinking. She didn't notice He Jing and Su when approaching her on tiptoe. The closer they got to her, the lighter their footsteps became and the slower their movements became. After making a hand gesture, the 2 of them wanted to scare Yi Qian from both sides. Unexpectedly, Yi Qian, whose back was facing them, suddenly turned around and shouted, "Ah!" at the 2 of them. The 2 of them immediately cried out in surprise. They were so easily frightened by Yi Qian. "Scared me to death, scared me to death. My soul is about to leave my body." Su Wen patted her chest and said with lingering fear. At this moment, her heart was still beating fast. He Jing, on the other hand, was a little better. After the winter break, she didn't gain weight but instead lost weight. She patted her chest to calm herself down and said to Yi Qian, "I heard that you had an exciting winter break. You even competed with a pickpocket. 1 against 8, my little sister is amazing." In the dormitory, He Jing was the oldest, Yi Qian was the second, and Su Wen was the youngest. The 3 of them had been in the same dormitory for 2.5 years. Other than being comrades in arms, they were also sisters. Yi Qian's achievements during the winter break were already known by the students who reported to school. Even with a severe cold, he could still easily take down 8 pickpockets. The next day, when he got off the train, he was retaliated against, but in the end, he was taken care of by her. Not only that, when he went to the train station to carry out his mission, he was targeted by the pickpocket's accomplices who wanted to take revenge with a knife. In the end, he was taken care of by Yi Qian, and all of them were sent to the police station. During the Chinese New Year, a large number of police officers had been deployed to fight against pickpockets in Nanguang. It was said that the small houses in Nanguang's police station were almost filled with pickpockets. Yi Qian had just arrived and hadn't met with the students in her class yet. She didn't know that the students in her class already knew about what happened during the winter break. Hearing this, she smiled and asked, "Where did you find out about this? Could it be that your boyfriend is serving in Nanguang?" Chapter 4083. I'm not that awesome. My senior brothers told me that when they came back. The students in our class who came here 2 days earlier all knew about it. Wenzi and I heard it from Song Jiqiu just now. After He Jing finished speaking, Su Wen added, "By the way, Song Jiqiu brought a handsome guy here. It's said that he is more handsome than Song Jiqiu. I plan to take Jingjing to see a handsome guy." "It's you who wants to see a handsome guy. You like to take Jingjing with you every time." Yi Qian glanced at Su Wen with a smile. Su Wen, who was in her 3rd year, had improved a lot compared to Su Wen, who was in her 1st year. She seemed to be a different person. The laziness that she used to muddle along in the past could not be found in her. In the words of the instructor, she had been reborn as a human being. Her laziness was gone, but her nature was still there. For example, she liked to see handsome guys. Every time she said that she wanted to see a handsome guy, He Jing would refuse and reiterate that she already had a boyfriend. She could not be unfaithful. Su Wen also had a boyfriend. This was a secret among the 3 of them. However, this time, He Jing said, "I'll pay with Yi Qian first. Then we'll go to see Song Jiqiu together. Song Jiqiu will treat us tonight. It's just a few minutes' walk outside the school. We'll reach the roasted chicken restaurant in Lianshi." Today was only the registration day. There were no other classes or evening self-study. In addition, they always needed to buy something when they came to school. Generally, they could get an exit permit. However, Yi Qian did not plan to go out. She was a little confused by He Jing's answer. He Jing, who never went to see a handsome guy with Su Wen, was acting abnormally today. He Jing knew that Yi Qian was attentive and must have figured out something. Anyway, she did not want to hide it. He Jing, who had lost a lot of weight, said frankly, "I broke up with him. It happened during the spring festival this year." Yi Qian suddenly looked up and looked at He Jing. "Why? You even changed your application for the college entrance examination in order to get close to him. Why did you break up when you finally got together?" "It's all because of his parents," Su Wen said indignantly, pouting her little mouth. He Jing straightened her cap and smiled. His parents didn't agree to it, and they felt that he's not young anymore. Furthermore, I'm still studying, and I'm not in a hurry to have a child after I graduate. You also know that the elders in the village have a strong sense of tradition. They are not willing to accept a girl who does not intend to have children for the next 5 years as their daughter-in-law, so they made a fuss at home and even arranged a blind date behind my back. My sister knew and told me. I called him to ask. Although he didn't go on a blind date with the girl introduced by his family, he couldn't go against his parents' wishes. The 2 of them calmed down for 10 days. When I called home during the spring festival, my sister told me that the old man wanted to strangle himself with a rope at home, and my uncle whipped him with a cane. His relatives also advised him not to waste time with his parent. It's too unfilial. He Jing used a calm tone to tell Yi Qian about the spring festival. Although there was still a faint smile on her lips, her red and teary eyes told Yi Qian that her heart was not calm. I compromised, and so did he. Both sides came to a compromise, and the only way out was to break up. He Jing's nose was stuffed. She took a deep breath, and the smile on her lips was a little bleak. Maybe the love was not deep enough. Other than breaking up, there was no other choice. Su Wen lowered her head, feeling sad for her friend. Her voice was choked with sobs. How can there be such unenlightened parents who insist on getting married early and having children early? Chapter 4084. Yi Qian saw that Su Wen still had something to say. They had been classmates for more than 2 years, so he knew that Su Wen's unfinished words were definitely not good. He immediately said in a low voice, "Wenzi, let Jingjing take a break." "There's nothing to take a break. I was really sad when we just broke up. After 3 years of love, I finally got married. Then we broke up just like that. I was so sad that I felt like my heart was being dug out. I trained hard during the day and trained hard with the soldiers at night. Thanks to the breakup, I got an excellent evaluation in the grassroots company this time. Now it's okay. It's all over. I was a little sad when I mentioned it, but I don't feel so sad anymore." He Jing wiped away the tears that had not fallen out of her eyes. She said to Yi Qian, "I've thought it through now. We're not allowed to be in a relationship. Let's break up. I can focus on my studies and not think about things that have nothing to do with my studies. Wenzi is right. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why should I love a flower? It's okay. I've passed this hurdle. There are better things waiting for me in the future." After wiping away her tears, He Jing, who came from Qinghai, was the same as before. Although she was not very beautiful, her tenacity was likable. She was a valiant female soldier. It was not about her beauty, but her temperament was enough. Yi Jian did not try to comfort He Jing. Instead, she patted He Jing's shoulder and adjusted her collar. She smiled and said, "There are plenty of fish in the sea. There's no need to fall in love with one flower." She was right about one thing this time. Since you chose to compromise, you should accept it. Since both of you chose to compromise, you should accept it more. It's okay. There are better things waiting for you in the future. Let's go. Let's turn in the phone first. Then we'll go find Song Jiqiu. I'd like to see how handsome the handsome guy that Wenzi is thinking about is. Although she did not like handsome guys, she could still take a look at him. He Jing could not help laughing. Her taste has always been average. I've never thought that the guy she thinks is handsome. Just like that. Hey, do you doubt my taste? You're the one who doesn't have good taste, okay? Little Jane Eyre, let me tell you, the handsome guy who came back this time is really handsome. Let's go in hand in our cell phones. Let's go and take a look. Yi Qian and He Jing were both pushed by her. They looked at each other and smiled, then shook their heads at the same time. Let's go. Let's go. I told you earlier that I was leaving. You two are the ones who are dawdling, Su Wen muttered. The three of them chatted and laughed as they walked side by side toward the faculty office. However, what Yi Qian didn't expect was that the handsome guy that Su Wen was talking about was actually Yang Heng. It had been almost 2 years since he had last seen Yang Heng in Southern Province. When they met again, their friendship was still the same. Yi Jian was surprised by the military uniform he was wearing. Why did you join the army? Shouldn't you follow in your father's footsteps and become a police officer? Yi Qian asked Yang Heng when they met. Su Wen, who was still waiting for Song Jiqiu to introduce a handsome guy, suddenly opened her eyes wide. No way. Little Jane Eyre actually knew him. Song Jiqiu glanced at her cousin Yang Heng and said with a smile, I told you that Yi Qian would be surprised to see you in this military uniform. You didn't believe me. Look, you're surprised. Nobody expected that you would choose to join the army. It was really unexpected. Yang Heng himself did not expect it either. He reached out his fist and bumped it lightly with Yi Qian's. They greeted each other as if they were best buddies. Yang Heng pulled his collar, raised his eyebrows and asked Yi Qian, "What do you think? Is it okay?" Chapter 4085. It's more than okay. It's great. I'm just surprised. I've never heard of you joining the army. Yi Qian took a step back intentionally and looked at Yang Heng up and down. You're so handsome. You're much more handsome than when you're in casual clothes. Why did you join the army? She asked again. Yang Henglian, who had a crew cut, looked a lot tougher. I joined the army just like that. I still don't know why I signed up on a whim. Now we have translators in the team. You'll learn from the military and I'll learn from the literary. Yang Heng, who had just returned from studying abroad, did not expect that he would join the army only because of his aunt, Song Lanting, said, "Since you haven't decided where you want to go after coming back, you can join the army. You're not that old. Try to see if you can join the army." Yang Heng was 23 years old when he came back from studying abroad. He was 1 year younger than 24 years old when he was recruited. Most importantly, he had a master's degree. After going through layers of political review, Yang Heng joined the army last winter. He was assigned to the translation department of a base, and became a translator in the army. This time, he did not come here with Song Jiqiu. Instead, he came here with their regiment commander to deal with something in the University of Science and Technology of China. After hearing the reason why Yang Heng joined the army, Yi Qian could not help sighing. I didn't expect you to join the army. Jiqiu and I talked about you before the vacation. We both thought you would stay in Australia for your girlfriend. Ha ha ha, that Australian beauty already has a new lover. My brother. Because it was Yi Qian, Song Jiqiu did not think too much. She was going to tell Yi Qian about Yang Heng's history of being cheated on by his girlfriend. However, before she could say it, Yang Heng elbowed her in the stomach. Song Jiqiu, don't you dare say another word. Yang Heng gnashed his teeth and warned her. He did not want to mention such a shameful thing. It was totally a dark history that he did not want to recall in his lifetime. Song Jiqiu, who was hit and covered her stomach, murmured in a low voice. She did not continue to say it. She only said to Yi Qian, "I'll talk to you when I'm free. Don't talk to him." Su Wen and He Jing did not immediately understand what was going on, but Yi Qian saw Yang Heng's face instantly darken. He pursed his lips into a smile and looked at Yang Heng meaningfully. Although she stopped in time, she still knew something. He already had a new lover. These few words contained a lot of information. Yang Heng felt uncomfortable under Yi Qian's knowing gaze. In the end, he glared at Yi Qian and sighed helplessly. Being friends with you is really stressful. You're so smart. Do you have any privacy? What private? The whole family has been laughing for half a day. How can that be considered private? Song Jiqiu rubbed her belly and laughed secretly. Then she said to Yi Qian, "My brother will treat us tonight. Let's go out for dinner. Su Wen, He Jing, you two have to give my brother some face." Yi Qian introduced his friend and comrade to Yang Heng hurriedly. He was so shocked by Yang Heng's military uniform that he forgot to do so. After the introduction, Su Wen said to Song Jiqiu with a smile, "Your brother is much more handsome than you." Song Jiqiu glanced at Yang Heng and asked Su Wen seriously, "Is the company that you sent to the Gobi Desert?" "What?" Su Wen did not understand what he meant and looked confused. Yi Qian glanced at his two cousins and said to Su Wen with a smile, "He means whether your eyes are covered by dust." Chapter 4086. What was there in the Gobi Desert? Dust. Yi Qian, who understood her immediately, got a thumbs up from Song Jiqiu. Yi Qian bowed and replied, "You flatter me." After being reminded, Su Wen finally understood what was going on. She lifted her foot and kicked toward Song Jichio's foot. Since they were in the school and the pickets were already on duty, Song Jichio, who had been kicked by Suwon, had no choice but to endure the kick as she was worried that some pickets would appear from nowhere. Yi Qian and He Jing both laughed and did not think anything of it. However, Yang Heng, who had seen the outside world, suddenly understood when he saw his cousin's happy expression after being kicked. It turned out that the girl he liked was her. Not bad. She had delicate facial features and big eyes. She was a lovely female soldier. Suwon was a girl with big eyes, while Song Jichio and Yang Heng were handsome boys. Especially when they smiled, the kind of spontaneous happiness could infect others. Yi Qian used to wonder why Yao Jing, who was a person with a dark heart, liked Yang Heng. It was probably because they could infect others with happy smiles, dispel the darkness in Yao Jing's heart, and bring light to her gloomy world. The female students in your dormitory are all good. I can tell at first glance that they are compatible with you. Looking at the two laughing people, Yang Heng first smiled politely at He Jing, who was quiet and gentle, and then said to Yi Qian, "One is active and the other is quiet. Your dormitory should be very lively. You can even see that. It seems that after joining the army, you have become more careful than before." Yi Qian, who was still not used to Yang Heng joining the army, said. He could not help but look at his old friend. In the end, he sighed in his heart that Yang Heng joined the army as a foreign student because of his aunt's words and became an interpreter in the army as a foreign student. It sounded incredible. Nowadays, studying abroad was like being plated with gold. Yang Heng was a master's student, and his university was one of the top in Australia. It was impossible for him to come back with nothing to do. Unless he wanted to join the army himself. Yang Heng said, "In the past, I heard that you wanted to apply for the National Science and Technology University of Science and Technology. In the future, you want to join the army. At that time, I thought, what's so good about the army? With your results, you can even study abroad at public expense. Later, when I found out that you really went to the National University of Science and Technology, I did some research overseas and felt that it wasn't bad. At that time, I actually had some thoughts in my heart. Later, I came back halfway and met you several times. I felt that you were much different after going to the military academy." Jichio also talked about the interesting things about the training in your academy from time to time. After listening to her, I became more and more interested. Not only did I return to the country in time for the winter conscription, I signed up purely with the intention of giving it a try. Who would have thought that I would be able to sing all the way and really enter the army? Although I'm only responsible for translation, the recruits also have to undergo training. Oh my God, I'm already regretting it on the first day. Training is interesting? After the first day, I was so tired that I didn't even want to eat. I just wanted to go back to bed and lie down. Who would have thought that the bed isn't a bed that anyone can lie on? I really want to be a deserter after being a recruit for a month. Speaking of the recruit company, Yang Heng poured out all his grievances, which made Yi Qian and He Jing turn their backs from time to time. They pursed their lips and laughed. He Jing felt that Suwon was not blind this time. Song Jichio's cousin was indeed handsome. He was handsome, but he was so handsome that others felt that he was out of their league. Yi Qian comforted Yang Heng. It's the same when we're a recruit. It's mainly because we've developed some habit. When we enter the army, we have to follow all the rules and regulations. There are rules and regulations that restrict you. When you first come here, you're really not used to it. Once you get used to it, you'll feel that it's nothing. Chapter 4087. When the training had become a habit, there was nothing to feel uncomfortable about. Now Yang Heng had adapted to it. The carelessness he had developed during his study abroad had been cleaned up by the rules in the army. He looked like a soldier now. Yeah, I got used to it. I got used to it one day when I was on leave. I was so relaxed that I woke up and found that the assembly time had passed. I was so scared that I ran out. It was not until I ran halfway that I remembered that I was on leave today. Gradually, I also experienced the fun of training. I also liked the disciplined army life. After becoming a soldier, there were more common topics between old friends. Yi Qian chatted with He Jing from time to time. Su Wen and Song Jiqiu chatted with each other. In the blink of an eye, they had chatted for more than 2 hours. Song Jiqiu looked at the time and said in surprise, "We've been chatting around the sports ground for more than 2 hours." She looked at Yi Qian and said, "Why don't we go out to eat now? There are still seats if we go early. We can come back early after eating. By the way, we can talk about how you fought 8 people on the train, how you fought several people after you came out, and how you captured 4 people alive when you were on duty at the train station. The students who came to school early are all waiting for your detailed report." Yang Heng did not know about this, but he knew that Yi Qian had done something big. She liked to do big things quietly in high school. She was still the same when she came to the military school. She did not do anything, but when she did, it was quite shocking. His cousin said that Yi Qian was a famous person in the military school and that all the students in the school knew Yi Qian. He believed it without a doubt. With Yi Qian's ability and personality, he could command the wind and clouds wherever he went. Yi Qian did not expect that the trivial thing on the train for her would be spread in the school. She raised her hand to touch her forehead, sighed with a smile, and said, "It's really nothing. I just happened to run into it. I'm a military school student anyway. It's really nothing to deal with a few pickpockets. If it were you, you would all do the same. But now I'm the main character, so a trivial thing becomes a big thing. It means that you have a great image in the hearts of the students. Just like in high school, you're the object of their worship. Don't be so modest. Everyone knows that it's useless for you to be modest. If it were me, if I had to face 8 pickpockets alone, Yi Qian, even if I was a soldier, I would still be afraid. I wouldn't be as calm as you." Yang Heng spoke the truth. He knew Yi Qian well and knew that she kept a low profile. Other people would only exaggerate the small things they had done, but she was the complete opposite, as if she was afraid that others would find out. That was the case in the past, and it was still the case now. You've become more capable, and the aura of a soldier is getting stronger. Yet, your low-key personality is still the same as before. You haven't changed much. Her words won the approval of He Jing and Su Wen. Su Wen even said to Song Jiqiu, "Your cousin speaks much better than you. You should study hard." Song Jiqiu glanced at Su Wen, feeling somewhat amused. She was the only one who thought that his speech was not good enough. That night, Yi Qian left the school with them to have dinner outside. She was quite vigilant during dinner, fearing that she would be targeted. Fortunately, nothing had happened until they returned to the school. Maybe, as Major General Yang had said, the murderer hiding in the dark should be afraid now. Yang Heng stayed in the school for 3 days. After 3 days, several doctorate students in the electromagnetism laboratory of the military school were led by 2 staff members and left the school with Yang Heng. Chapter 4088. It was common for laboratory staff to take the doctoral students out of the school, but not everyone knew about it. Generally, laboratory staff had to go to some secret bases when they needed to go out. Yi Qian did not know that Yang Heng had taken the electromagnetic laboratory staff out of the school. She only knew that her old friend, whom she had not seen for a long time, had left the school at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yesterday, Yang Heng had told her that he would leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. As for when they would meet again, it was hard to say. It could be a few years or it could be very soon. As time went by, childhood friends went to different places. No one knew when they would meet again. Yang Heng said to Yi Qian with a smile, "I don't know when we will meet again, but I know that I will come to your school to find you. I can come in with my ID." He was telling the truth. The military school was run in a militarized way. Like the army, it was impossible to let people in casually. In particular, there were many laboratories in the National University of Science and Technology. These laboratories often contained the latest research and development secret. If they let people in casually, once the secrets were leaked, it would not be an ordinary thing. Even the students of the school were not allowed to enter these laboratories. Only the qualified people who were in charge of the laboratories could enter and leave. Even for a famous person like Yi Qian, the laboratories were forbidden to her and would not be opened to her casually. Yang Heng did not tell Yi Qian who they would take away. He only told her the time of departure. Yi Qian knew the time, but she and Song Jiqiu could not see him off. They had already said goodbye, so they could only wait to see him next time. In the second half of the third semester, all the homework and training were heavier. From the beginning of the semester to the end of the May Day holiday, Yi Qian did not leave the school at all. In order to be an excellent student, when she graduated, Yi Qian was as busy as a spinning top every day. Even He Jing and Su Wen were driven by her. Every time the three of them returned to the dormitory, the first thing they did was to take out the stool and sit for more than 10 minutes before they got up to wash up. With such a busy schedule, He Jing quickly recovered from her heartbreak. She put this first love, which she had spent a lot of energy on, into her memories and no longer took it out to read. She really did not have the energy to continue reading. She was too tired. Sometimes, she even suspected that Yi Qian was doing this on purpose. He wanted her to be so busy that she almost forgot that she was a lovelorn person. However, this year was probably the season of heartbreak. There were a few male students in the class who had also fallen out of love. The reason was very simple. Not only did they not spend much time together, they did not even have a phone call. When they wanted to look for someone, they could not find him. When they found a boyfriend, they felt like they had not found one at all. When the girl proposed to break up, the guy insisted on his pride and replied with an "oh" before breaking up. It was Song Jiqiu and several other boys who secretly told Yi Qian about these things. When they were talking about it, they all looked sad, as if they were the ones who had fallen out of love. Yi Qian paid little attention to the private affairs of the students in the class. Therefore, she always thought that there should not be any students in the class who fell in love. It was not until the 5 male students had all fallen out of love from the beginning of the semester to the end of the May Day holiday that Yi Qian realized that there were actually so many people like her who worked in the dark. She also did not expect that their relationship would be so fragile. A single sentence of "spend little time together" and "spend more time apart" could easily cut off their feelings. It was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. However, when you decided to find a soldier who did not have time to spend with you, you should be prepared that having a boyfriend was equivalent to not having a boyfriend at all. She had also told this to Jia Xian before. Chapter 4089. To Yi Qian's delight, Jiasen called the day before the May Day holiday to say that she and T6 would be getting engaged during the holiday. She asked if she had time to come over and attend their engagement banquet. It was at T6's hometown. T6's hometown was in the city where the University of Science and Technology of China was located, and she was here right now. However, she was not around during the May Day holiday. Yi Qian, who was packing her luggage halfway, ran out to answer the call. She was pleasantly surprised by their engagement, but she could not be there to give her blessings. She said helplessly, "Jiasen, before I answered your call, I was packing my luggage in the dormitory. I'll be leaving for some mountainous area for training at 11 p.m. tonight. I really want to attend your engagement banquet with Wu Yu, but I'm sorry, Jiasen. My schedule doesn't allow me to come out." On the other end, Jiasen covered the phone and said to her boyfriend, Wu Yu, who was sprawled on top of her like a boneless man, "Little Jane Eyre doesn't have time to attend our engagement banquet. She has to go out for training. Wu Yu was now openly hugging his wife. When he heard that, he replied to Jiasun with an expression that said, "I knew it would be like this. I told you just now that based on my understanding of the military academies, the normal university students are really on break. Just like you, they can even come back 2 days early. As for the military academies, other than the winter and summer holidays, some of the students are on break. The rest of the holidays are all off. It's very normal for them not to attend." And Jiasun sighed in disappointment. However, she switched to a nonchalant tone over the phone and said with a laugh, "I knew you definitely wouldn't have the time. Forget it, on account of our many years of friendship. If you say a few auspicious words to make me happy, I'll forgive you." Auspicious words? That's easy. May you live a long and happy life together. May you have a child soon. After saying a bunch of auspicious words, T6 Wuyue's favorite phrase, "give birth to a child soon." He, who had been listening silently all this while, finally spoke up. "Thanks to your auspicious words, we'll definitely give birth to a child soon." When Yi Qian heard Wu Yu's voice, she immediately said, "Wu Yu, I'm warning you as Jiasun's good friend. If you dare to treat Jiasun badly, I won't let you off." "Ha ha, you should be saying that to Jiasun. I wouldn't dare treat her badly. I'm just short of worshipping her now. If you see this slave of mine, you'll definitely despise me." Wu Yu did not take the microphone. He rested his chin on Jia Xian's shoulder and laughed cheerfully. "Jia Xian is still studying. Our parents have discussed getting engaged first. When Jia Xian graduates, we will get married on the same day. This is called double happiness." Getting a marriage certificate after graduation was indeed a double blessing. Now, including G3, there were 2 pairs of newbies in the team this year. She regretted not being able to attend her comrade G3's wedding. Now that it was time for Jia Xian and her comrade T6's engagement ceremony, she still missed it. When Yi Qian returned to the dormitory to continue packing, she felt a little disappointed. Hopefully, she wouldn't miss Jia Xian and T6's wedding. Her sense of disappointment gradually disappeared as they boarded the bus and headed to a certain mountainous area. In the next 7 days, the third-year students would be taking the field assessment. The results of this assessment would be directly included in their final graduation score, so there wasn't much time left for Yi Qian to pay attention to other things. Suwon was a little nervous. When she got into the bus, she chose to sit next to Yi Qian and held Yi Qian's hand tightly with both hands. It was as though holding on to Yi Qian would give her a sense of security. This made He Jing stare at her in the dark. Chapter 4090. That's all you've got. What's there to be afraid of? It's not like you haven't lived outside before. What's there to be afraid of? He Jing glared at her, exasperated. Although Suwon listened, her hands did not leave Yi Qian's side. She said, "I don't want to be afraid, but I can't control myself. We're in the middle of nowhere, and they want us to sleep in the mountains without even a tent. We have to go through a field in the middle of the night." As she spoke, Suwon shuddered. She asked Yi Qian weakly, "Yi Qian, do you think we'll encounter a will-o'-the-wisp when we go through the field? Do you think it's so easy for you to see the will-o'-the-wisp?" He Jing rolled her eyes at her and said to Yi Qian, "Ignore her. The more you ignore her, the more timid she'll become. This time, the results of the test will be calculated. Senior Year 4 already reminded us that the field test is a test of courage. The more you're afraid of something, the more the test team will arrange for it. Someone like her who's afraid of the law will be scared witless." Suwon was so nervous that she wanted to go to the washroom. "What should I do? I want to go to the washroom now. Hold it in." "I can't hold it in." "Who told you to say that? The more you say, the more nervous I get. The more nervous I get, the more scared I get. When I'm nervous and scared, I want to go to the washroom." He Jing was almost confused by Suwon's words. She was afraid of disturbing the other students in the bus, so she lowered her voice as much as possible. She gritted her teeth and said, "Then do you want to get good results?" "Yes, why wouldn't I?" Suwon answered without hesitation. Jing felt that she had a chance. She clenched her fist and made a gesture of encouragement. She said, "What's there to be afraid of? If I want to get good results, I'll be fearless." "I want to be fearless too, but I'm afraid. What can I do?" When she heard Suwon's weak reply, Jing made a gesture of wanting to pounce on Suwon and strangle her. Then, she closed her eyes and pulled back her outstretched hand into a fist. "I won't persuade her any more. Yi Qian, I'll leave it to you." Yi Qian, resting with his eyes closed, replied with a smile. "I won't persuade her. Then she really isn't." The sad Suwon held Yi Jian's hands and squeezed her eyes open, trying to squeeze out a few drops of tears to achieve a better effect. "Little Jian, I'll leave my safety to you. Please take good care of me. Thank you." Before she could squeeze out her tears, Jing pinched her face with Yi Jian between them. "Your face, Suwon. Pick up your face. Don't let others step on it and dirty it." "Jing, my face is going to be bruised by you. I'm not done with you." Can you beat me?" The two of them went back and forth. In the end, Suwon was the first to fall asleep. It was already past 2 in the morning. Based on the military academy's schedule, she should have fallen asleep long ago. Once she fell asleep, Jing stretched her aching waist and said to Yi Qian, who had not fallen asleep either, "She's finally asleep. What do you think she'll do after she graduates and leaves us?" Jing sighed a little worriedly. "Sometimes she's as timid as a mouse, and sometimes she's full of wild ideas. Often, before anything happens, she scares herself. We still have a year's worth of time. Where will she be assigned to then?" Her worry made Yi Qian smile and shake his head. "You always say that I take care of Wenzi. Actually, you take care of her more than I do. At least, I don't have to worry about whether she can take care of herself after she leaves us." Chapter 4091. On the surface, it looked like she took more care of Suwon, but in reality, her care for Suwon was all about nurturing Suwon's personal ability. For example, when she pulled her along during training, no matter how tired Suwon was, no matter how hard it was, even if she shouted that she could not hold on, she never relented and let Suwon go. This was the nurturing of Suwon's personal ability. It all depended on her perseverance. She stood at the side and watched closely, never letting her go. Jing was different. Every time she saw Suwon, Jing, there's no such thing as being unable to live without someone. When the environment changes and the people around you change, Wenzi will also change. If you say that she's afraid, then let her be afraid. When she gets used to facing her fears, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yi Qian spoke softly and glanced at Suwon, whose head was resting on his shoulder. In the darkness, Yi Qian's clear black eyes were filled with deep nostalgia. "You have to move forward eventually. When you can only walk alone, you'll know how to walk." Just like her. Captain Xia had left her for so long. She had encountered problems alone and faced difficulties alone. Even if Captain Xia was not by her side, she had still walked on alone. Jing whispered softly, "You have to move forward eventually. When you can only walk alone, you'll know how to walk." She whispered back and forth a few times. When she lifted her head again, her face was already covered in tears. Wasn't that right? When she first broke up with him, she kept thinking about what she should do in the future. What should she do without him in the future? At that time, she was so pessimistic. She thought that after breaking up with him, her beliefs would collapse and she would not be able to live with him in the future. In the end, without him, who she once loved deeply, she walked on alone. When she thought about it, although she still felt sad, she did not feel that the days without him would be painful. Just as Yi Qian said, when she could only walk alone, she would know how to walk. Yi Qian had been waiting for her to overcome one obstacle after another. She had seen the man she loved deeply fall, but she had not fallen. She had seen the loved ones she respected leave, but she had not fallen. She was like the most tenacious gesang flower on the plateau. No matter how difficult the road ahead was, she could withstand the cold and bloom the most beautiful flower. Xia Jinyuan gently stroked the scar on his chest, and looked at the rising sun in the east. Bathing in the sunlight, his usual indifference faded away, and there was only a smile on his face that was warmer than the sun. He already had evidence and information of Cobra's intelligence transactions with many countries. Now, all he had to do was wait for Luke to take action and send this information back to Russia. Then, he would send it to a certain Western country that Cobra seemed to be loyal to. Before he received this information, he had always thought that Cobra only worked for one country. Now that he had access to Cobra's study room, he knew how many poisonous nests this cunning snake had. He used the wealth in his hands to open up one intelligence channel after another, transferring the intelligence of this country to another, and then transferring the intelligence of another country to this country. Then, as an artist and philanthropist, he went to various political and celebrity parties in various countries to obtain more information that was beneficial to him. Through this way of living, he obtained wealth and the current place he was in now. The unlocked door was pushed open and Luke walked in. He saw his partner standing in front of the balcony, admiring the sunrise while wearing a white long-sleeved shirt. Looking at it, he had to admit that this guy's body was really great. Chapter 4092. Luke thought enviously as he sized up the Asian man's slender and handsome physique. The morning breeze blew across the balcony and blew up the white shirt. The sunlight shone through the thin white shirt and outlined the strong waist that only Asian men had. At that moment, Luke, who only liked big butts and big breasts, couldn't help but swallow. This guy's body, damn it! That's great. He seemed to be completely immersed in the beauty of the sunrise and didn't realize that he had come in. He was slowly buttoning his shirt and didn't show any signs of turning around. No, with his partner's alertness, he must have noticed when he opened the door. He didn't answer because he trusted him and thought that he wouldn't hurt him. He really did trust him. Sometimes he would even do as he said. He never doubted that everything would be easy to complete. For example, the day before yesterday, he wanted to know which country's politician Cobra would meet next and where they would meet. He just asked casually and not long after, he told him. Luke silently pursed his lips, and the look in his eyes gradually became somewhat complicated. Although his partner was very mysterious, he was also very honest. Although he was very meticulous, he never asked him what he was doing in secret. He was absolutely loyal to Cobra and had absolute trust in him. Therefore, Cobra liked him more and more and valued him more and more. Perhaps there was no boss who didn't like a subordinate who was willing to protect his loyal boss with his life, including a cunning person like Cobra. As for himself, he also liked this kind of partner. However, it was a pity that their cooperation would not last for long. It would end soon, very soon. Man, if there was a chance later, he would explain why he did what he did. He would sincerely take him out for a drink and seriously talk about Luke's life. Xia, are you seducing me now? Luke put away his complicated gaze and smiled. At the same time, he flicked a bunch of car keys between his fingers and blew a light whistle. Xia Jinyuan leisurely fastened his cufflinks and didn't answer. He then whistled alone. During this time, Luke was in a good mood. Of course, he was also in a good mood. Why? The reason was simple. Because they should be able to go home soon. With the efficiency of the Russian side and the swift and decisive means of their current president, Luke of the Signal Flag Special Forces had already obtained so much powerful evidence and information. It was time for the Russian side to end the trap that had been set up for 5.5 years. As for the trap set up by the Chinese soldier, it was time to end it. Luke, who was in a good mood, thought that he had hidden himself well and that his identity had not been discovered. It was just that Cobra had not discovered his identity. His partner, the elite special forces from China's top special forces, had already discovered his identity a long time ago. Xia Jinyuan stopped smiling and turned around. He glanced at Luke coldly and said, "If you were a woman, maybe I would consider it." "Ha ha ha, then I won't be able to become a woman. Let's go, Xia. I'll take you for a ride. The sun is so good outside and you finally ended your days as a monk. You should really go out and walk. There are more and more beautiful women on Morabend Street. When our car drives past them, the wind will blow up their thin and short skirts, revealing their sexy G-string. Ha ha, Xia, let's go. I can't wait," Luke said loudly, using his slutty image to hide his true identity. Chapter 4093. Xia Jinyuan recuperated in Myanmar for 2 months until the wound on his chest was completely healed. Luke told Cobra that they could return to Melbourne. After returning, Luke was also given a heavy responsibility by Cobra, but compared to Xia Jinyuan, he was slightly inferior. Luke did not have the courage of Xia Jinyuan, so even though he had been lurking for almost 6 years, he did not come into contact with the secrets around Cobra. However, with the help of Xia Jinyuan, he made great progress. Now the situation was getting clearer and clearer. Even if Luke only provided a little clue from Xia Jinyuan, it was enough for Russia, a big country, to smash a gap in Cobra's impenetrable wall. This gap became the exit for Luke to return to Russia, and also the exit for Xia Jinyuan to return to China in advance. He was very happy that he would soon be able to return to his hometown, which he had been away from for a long time. In addition to being happy, he felt more and more guilty towards Xia Jinyuan, because he knew that once something happened to Cobra, his partner would also be in trouble. Because the Russian side wouldn't keep someone who could threaten Luke's existence, especially Cobra's most trusted subordinate. He protested, but it was to no avail. The Intelligence Bureau rejected his protest without any room for negotiation and told him that if he wanted to return to signal flag service, then everyone around Cobra who had seen him, especially the partner that Cobra had assigned to him, would have to die. If his partner did not die, then Russia would be in trouble, the signal flag would be in trouble, and he, Luke, would also be in trouble. He even thought of secretly letting Xia go, but he knew very well that this was a very stupid idea. If he let Xia go, Russia would still be able to find him and carry out an assassination. Looking at his partner who only used his mouth to despise him, but actually cooperated with him, Luke knew that his heart was actually very bitter. "Xia, my partner, how should I save you?" Luke, whose heart was in a mess, continued to laugh wildly to cover himself. Xia Jinyuan looked at his laughter and fixed his gaze on him, then frowned slightly. "Luke, are you hiding something from me?" This was Xia Jinyuan's test. Since he knew that he would be leaving soon, he wanted to see if Luke would reveal anything to him. If he revealed something, then he would also reveal something. For example, he would choose to leave on his own without Xia Jinyuan's help. During this period, especially in the past week, he had seen Luke struggle, but seeing it did not mean that he would talk him out of it. So far, Luke had not suspected his identity. Perhaps even until he left, Luke still did not know what his identity was. Xia Jinyuan also did not intend to tell Luke. Although the relationship between Russia and China was good, they were still 2 different countries after all. He did not intend to have too close a negotiation with Luke. When he saw Luke's smile stiffen because of his words, Xia Jinyuan frowned even more. "Your behavior is quite strange. It makes me think that you are hiding something important from me." No, buddy, not at all. You misunderstood." Luke shrugged and spread his hands so that Xia Jinyuan could look at him better. Look, buddy. What important thing can I hide from you? Well, Xia, put on your shoes and go on a date with a beauty with me. The weather is so good that it's best to take a beauty for a ride in a sports car. Chapter 4094. Well, since Xia Jinyuan did not reveal anything, then it was even more impossible for him to reveal anything. Xia Jinyuan looked away and said calmly, Sorry, I don't have time to watch you flirt with a beauty in the car. I need to accompany Mr. Cobra to meet a client from China. Client? What client? Why haven't I heard of him? Luke's stiff face faded away. He widened his eyes and looked very dissatisfied. He said loudly, Xia, in order to reject me, you even invited Mr. Cobra out? Luke really did not know that Cobra was going to meet a client. He also knew that his partner would not lie to him. However, he now wanted to know who exactly Cobra was going to meet. After tying his tie, Xia Jin glanced at Luke, who was trying to get information out of him again. To be honest, Luke's ability to get information out of him was very average. Of course, that was only in front of him. If he was in front of others, Luke would never make the same mistake that would easily expose himself to Cobra. Luke knew that Cobra was going to meet a Chinese client, but he did not know who it was, so he deliberately asked to see if he could get any information out of Xia Jinyuan. Xia Jinyuan, who saw through his plan, said calmly, Mr. Cobra is planning to invest in China, and China has expressed great interest. I still have business to attend to, so please step aside. Thank you. Xia Jinyuan did not hide anything and casually talked about it. Cobra would not hide this kind of thing from Luke. Maybe he told him something else. Cobra was very cunning. Sometimes, he would divide the same thing into several parts and let different people complete it. This was also why Luke could not collect the strongest evidence when he was with Cobra. So, you are going to meet a Chinese client. Mr. Cobra mentioned it last time, and he said that he needed to think about it carefully. Why did he change his mind now? Luke asked. Xia Jinyuan had finished packing. When he saw that Luke had not left, he frowned even more. Who Mr. Cobra wants to meet is not something we can interfere with. Luke, you have been acting very strange recently. I want you to restrain yourself a little in front of me, but in front of Mr. Cobra and the others, you'd better keep your mouth shut like before. I don't like to get used to a new partner. This was both a reminder and a warning. Of course, it was good to be back home, but it was best not to get carried away. However, he could also understand Luke's feelings at this moment. After leaving for almost 6 years, he could finally return home. It was indeed a very exciting thing. If he had been away for so long, he might have been as excited as Luke. Luke felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was already at the door, and his eyes darkened. Was Xia reminding him just now? Why did he feel that Xia seemed to have discovered something, yet he didn't feel like he had discovered anything? Even the corners of Luke's mouth tightened. Xia Jinyuan, who had already walked out of the door, said without looking back, "Come out and close the door." "Thank you." Luke didn't answer immediately. If Xia Zhen had discovered something, he would have told Cobra, but he hadn't. But why did he feel that Xia Zhen had discovered something? If Xia had really discovered something, but he didn't tell Cobra, then why? Luke didn't answer Xia Jinyuan. He was lost in his own thoughts. Xia Jinyuan, who had walked out, didn't care about Luke's thoughts. He would leave on his own and didn't need Luke's help. As long as the Russians didn't come out and cause trouble, it would be fine. Chapter 4095. Xia Jinyuan was surprised to see Cobra in a suit because Cobra hated formal wear and always dressed casually as an artist. Cobra saw the surprise in his eyes and laughed. "Today I need to meet a very important Chinese client. Whether or not I can invest in China depends on his help. So, I need to be very careful. Xia Jinyuan nodded slightly, indicating that he would also be very careful. He did not say anything else. He really had nothing to say when he was with Cobra, a poisonous snake. Cobra had always wanted to enter the Chinese market, but the Chinese had always been very cautious and did not move because of his high investment. This time, Cobra finally had an opportunity, so naturally, Cobra would treat it with caution. However, he did not expect that the important Chinese client that Cobra mentioned was actually Qin Xiu. The moment he saw Qin Xiu, Xia Jinyuan's heart skipped a beat. He really did not know that Qin Xiu, the Chinese ambassador in Melbourne, would meet with a businessman. Why would Qin Xiu meet with a businessman? He had not contacted China for a month. Was there something that he did not know? Xia Jinyuan, whose heart sank, stood beside Cobra with a cold expression and watched the two shake hands. He then saw Qin Xiu's gaze sweep across his face, as if he did not know him. He smiled at Cobra and said, "Sorry, I'm late. Sorry to have kept you waiting." No, the ambassador is not late. I arrived early." At this time, Cobra lowered his stance. He lowered his stance a little. He was now a businessman who wanted to enter the Chinese market. A businessman would never be able to hold his head high in front of a country's high officials, unless he wanted to lose the country's market. Qin Xiu made a "please" gesture. "Then let's go in and talk. I still have a meeting to attend in the afternoon, so we only have an hour to talk. Time is a little tight, please forgive me." As the ambassador of a country, Qin Xiu had a good grasp of his identity. The nobility and magnanimity that he should have were vividly expressed in one sentence. This made Cobra, who had been using the alias Crone outside, realize that the ambassador in front of him was not easy to communicate with, even though he was very young. An hour. He thought that the Chinese ambassador would leave the whole morning to him. He had even arranged lunch. In the end, the Chinese ambassador only gave them an hour to communicate. What could they talk about in an hour? Then he had to let this young Chinese ambassador know that he had enough strength to enter the Chinese market and achieve a win-win situation for both sides. Unfortunately, Qin Xiu didn't give Cobra a chance to prove his wealth. The entire exchange was indeed centered around Cobra's entry into the China market, but Cobra did not take the initiative in its own hands as Cobra had hoped. Xia Jinyuan was sitting diagonally across from Qin Xiu, who only needed to raise his head slightly to see him. He did not receive any extra glances from Qin Xiu. Qin Xiu carried out the entire exchange in a gentle but strong manner. He first talked about the legal restrictions that China had on foreign businessmen, then talked about the qualifications that foreign businessmen should have to enter China. Halfway through, he even talked about the proper arrangements for work in China after entering the Chinese market. Cobra thought that the young Chinese ambassador would be easy to deal with, but now he knew how wrong he was. Chapter 4096. Xia Jinyuan didn't have much interaction with Qin Xiu, and he had never seen Qin Xiu deal with foreign affairs. This time, he saw that Qin Xiu was able to make Cobra's expression more and more dignified. Several times, Qin Xiu deflected his questions. Xia Jinyuan admired him, but also felt a little complicated. This love rival was really amazing. Every country has its own legal system and regulations. If you enter our market, the first thing you need to do is to understand our laws and regulations. At the same time, you need to pay close attention to the policy trends of our country's core government institutions, such as the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission. You can't use ignorance as an excuse to avoid responsibility. Cobra seized the opportunity to speak. He smiled and said, "Of course, if I enter the Chinese market, I must understand the Chinese laws and regulations." Qin Xiu smiled and shook his head. "Mr. Crown, I think it's too late for you to understand the Chinese laws and regulations after entering the Chinese market. Cobra's expression became colder. Xia Jinyuan felt that he was choking on the anger that he had nowhere to vent. TSK. Our country's ambassador is really amazing. Look at this poisonous snake that's about to get internal injuries. Qin Xiu didn't care what Cobra thought at the moment. Qin Xiu crossed his fingers on the conference table and continued to smile. He said firmly, "Also, I've looked at your application in detail. There's one point in it that you're going to acquire. Here, I need to remind you very carefully that you can acquire, but it has to be legal and not malicious. I will provide a document to the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission. Once your company enters the Chinese market, it will become a company that will be focused on." In other words, China had already set its sights on Cobra's company before it even started. This wasn't at all. Cobra was thinking. He wanted to use the reason of befriending the Chinese ambassador to make it easier for him to do things after entering the Chinese market. He didn't want to be watched closely by the Chinese before he even started. Qin Xiu's time was a little tight. He didn't give Cobra many chances to ask questions. After he finished explaining his main purpose of coming here, he smiled. The elegant prince was no longer as domineering as before. He suddenly became very easygoing. This is the main point I'm going to talk about today. I hope Mr. Crown can understand it well. We welcome foreign businessmen to enter the Chinese market and look forward to cooperating with Mr. Crown. Xia Jinyuan knew that Cobra was in a bad mood. He thought they would reach an agreement this time, but he didn't expect the Chinese ambassador to come over so aggressively that he didn't even have a chance to ask for anything. How could he not be angry? Faced with his love rival, Xia Jinyuan had to admit that his rival was very outstanding, so outstanding that he admired him. Xia Jinyuan was probably the only one who admired his rival. Mr. Crown, you can reconsider and do a detailed investigation of the Chinese market. I don't think you understand the Chinese market well, but... Qin Xiu paused slightly and looked at Cobra. His gentle expression became a little cold. But Mr. Crown, you give me the feeling that you are very anxious to enter the Chinese market and don't care if there is a loss. This feeling makes me feel very strange. Since Mr. Crown is the biggest entrepreneur in Melbourne, you should be very concerned about losses and profit. But in your application, I don't have this feeling at all. When Cobra heard this, his pupils constricted. Chapter 4097. He was indeed very anxious to enter the Chinese market, and he was prepared to incur losses in the early stages. In order to enter the Chinese market, a certain economist who supported him behind the scenes even made a detailed loss report for him. However, the Chinese market was quite large, and he was not worried about the early losses. First of all, the losses were not his personal funds. Secondly, as long as the company took root in China, the huge Chinese market would not let him incur losses for too long. With support, there was no need to worry about the interruption of the capital chain. As long as he could stand firm in China, the losses in the early stages could be tolerated. Therefore, after conducting research on the Chinese market, when the economist drafted his declaration, he also added his own personal opinions, because they could see in their research that China needed a large amount of foreign investment to drive the domestic economy. In the declaration, he mentioned the acquisition that could best represent a company's financial resources. The economist who drafted his declaration also believed that when the Chinese saw his declaration, they would welcome him into the Chinese market. You are not afraid of losses, can bear losses, and have enough financial resources to acquire such a good foreign company. How could a backward country like China refuse such a good foreign company? It was absolutely impossible to refuse. The economist who drafted his declaration even judged China in a very contemptuous tone. "Don't worry, sir. After a country like China sees your declaration, they will warmly welcome your arrival. Their workers will even treat you like a parent. You can ask them to do whatever you want, and they will definitely not complain. China is just a backward country. Compared to our country, they are too far behind. But they want to become a big country with economic strength. So, sir, after this declaration is submitted, I can tell you with certainty that the Chinese diplomatic ambassador in Melbourne will definitely come to see you in person. At that time, you will know how urgently China needs you to be like God, saving their poor and creating wealth for them. Yes, when the internationally renowned economist told him this, he really thought so. In fact, he did get a personal meeting with the Chinese diplomatic ambassador in Melbourne. When he received the call 2 days ago, he specifically contacted the economist and told him that the Chinese ambassador had contacted him in person. On the phone, the famous economist smiled at him and said, "Everything is under our control, sir. Now it's time for you to make your request to the Chinese ambassador. Let him know that we bring wealth to them, and they have to cooperate with us. We are giving alms, and they can only obediently cooperate. You know, you can solve the food and clothing problems of many of their poor." He also thought so. No country would refuse such a good foreign investment, and the same was true for a developing poor country like China. But now Cobra knew that he was wrong. The economist who had given him countless suggestions and benefits was also wrong. The young Chinese diplomat in front of him looked like an elegant gentleman. When he opened his mouth, he realized that being a gentleman was only a facade to confuse others. The words he said were so strong that he had no way out. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself. Chapter 4098. This was the young ambassador from China. He had underestimated this ambassador and paid a heavy price for it. You want to enter the Chinese market like a savior? Dream on. The young ambassador was full of doubts about his declaration. He didn't care about such a declaration at all. If he wasn't the most outstanding entrepreneur and philanthropist in Melbourne, the Chinese ambassador probably wouldn't even meet with him. He originally thought that Cobra would be able to enter the Chinese market very smoothly, but his expression was much more serious than before. The expressionless Xia Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly. He had heard the conversation between Cobra and the economist. The economist's contempt for China meant that Cobra couldn't enter the Chinese market through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now that he heard Qin Xiu's merciless rejection, Xia Jinyuan felt as if he had drunk a glass of ice water in June. His whole body and mind were refreshed. This time, a famous economist was going to be in trouble. Why did Qin Xiu want to meet Cobra in person? The reason was very simple. Cobra's declaration was full of a sense of superiority. He thought that going to China was his charity to the Chinese, that he was going to save the poor people of a poor country and bring wealth to China. This Qin Xiu, who had been reporting, looked at it coldly from the beginning to the end. After reading it, he instructed the staff to contact Cobra's secretary, who had been using the identity of Mr. Crown as a cover. Thus, there was a meeting now. Now that he saw the seriousness on Cobra's face, he could tell that Cobra was very angry. But so what? Today, he came as the Chinese ambassador to stop the other party's arrogance, but he didn't completely reject him. That was until he saw Xia Jinyuan. Xia Jinyuan nationality, Chinese identity, active special forces soldier, and Yi Qian's boyfriend. Why did he appear here? Why did he become Crown's bodyguard? Why was he standing next to Crown? Why was he here? The moment Qin Xiu saw Xia Jinyuan, all kinds of whys came to his mind. He even thought about whether he should secretly ask Xia Jinyuan, but the other party's indifference to him made him restrain his gaze. As a soldier, Xia Jinyuan appeared behind a famous entrepreneur and philanthropist in Melbourne. He still remembered that Xia Jinyuan's military rank wasn't low, but he still sent Xia Jinyuan, who had a high military rank, to come. Qin Xiu suddenly realized that there was something wrong with Crown, and it was a big problem. Otherwise, Xia Jinyuan, who was from the military, wouldn't have been targeted by Xia Jinyuan. From the moment he saw Xia Jinyuan to the moment he opened his mouth to speak, it only took a few seconds for him to overturn his previous intention of communicating with Cobra. Using a very strong attitude to attack the other party's every weakness was to prevent the other party from entering the Chinese market to fish in troubled waters. Qin Xiu looked at the time and stood up gracefully. He lowered his gaze slightly and looked down at Cobra. Because I have doubts about Crown's declaration, I wanted to see Mr. Crown in person. Unfortunately, I reminded Crone of what he should do, but Mr. Crone didn't realize his own shortcomings. He only said that you have enough money. Of course I know Mr. Crown has enough financial resources, but you didn't show me enough sincerity. Okay, Mr. Crown, I still have a meeting to attend. Goodbye. After he finished speaking, he didn't give Cobra a chance to persuade him to stay. He nodded slightly in a gentlemanly manner and turned to leave. One of Cobra's bodyguards saw this and said in a low voice, "Mr. Cobra," asking if they should stop the Chinese ambassador. Chapter 4099. Did he want to detain the Chinese ambassador in front of a Chinese soldier? Xia Jinyuan glanced at the bodyguard indifferently and said in a cold voice, "This is the ambassador representing China." His cold voice was very soft and slightly louder than the bodyguard's. Qin Xiu, who was standing at the door and waiting for the staff to open the heavy solid wooden door, looked a little scared. Xia Jinyuan was warning the people around Crown not to act rashly, but also reminding himself, if a bodyguard dared to touch the ambassador of a country, then the entrepreneur behind the bodyguard, Mr. Crown, was not a kind person. Crown was definitely not a kind person. Otherwise, why would he be targeted by the Chinese military? He needed to contact the people in China. Xia Jinyuan's warning made Cobra glance at the bodyguard gloomily. When the wooden door of the conference room was opened, he said sincerely to Qin Xiu, "Ambassador, I am deeply sorry for my recklessness, but please believe that I really want to enter the Chinese market and achieve a win-win situation." Qin Xiu, who was as tall as bamboo, turned around and smiled elegantly. "Of course I believe in Mr. Crown's sincerity, but I think you need to continue to understand our market well. Goodbye, Mr. Crown." Xia Jinyuan heard the sound of Cobra gnashing his teeth, but in front of the ambassador, Cobra did not show his gloomy side. He even turned to Xia Jinyuan and said, "Xia, help me see the Chinese ambassador out." Since the Chinese ambassador did not give him face, then why should he personally see him out? No need. If I can come here on my own, then I can leave on my own. Qin Xiu raised his hand and refused very straightforwardly. He did not want to give Cobra any chance to step on his shoulders, who represented the country's image. Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting, did not move at all. When Qin Xiu refused, he even curled the corners of his mouth coldly. It was only after Cobra secretly warned him that he put away the coldness on his face. The two staff members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who came out with him looked at the ambassador walking in front of them. They looked at each other and did not understand why the ambassador suddenly changed his mind. He only said that he wanted to reduce Crown's arrogance, and did not say that he would refuse. Why did he suddenly change his mind? The two of them did not immediately ask Qin Xiu. Instead, they took two separate cars and returned to the embassy. It was much easier for Qin Xiu to contact the people in China than it was for Xia Jinyuan. After getting into the bulletproof, anti-tracking, and anti-eavesdropping car, Qin Xiu took out his cell phone. His slender fingers gently rubbed the buttons on his cell phone a few times as he contacted Old Master Qin. The best way to find out more about Xia Jinyuan was to ask Commander-in-Chief Xia. Since Old Master Qin and Master Xia were in contact, it would only take a few minutes for Qin Xiu to get Commander-in-Chief Xia's personal number. Commander-in-Chief Xia was slightly surprised when he heard Qin Xiu's self-introduction. It was not until Qin Xiu said that he met Xia Jinyuan in Melbourne that he was standing behind a famous Melbourne entrepreneur as a bodyguard. Commander-in-Chief Xia could not help but raise his hand and pinch the bridge of his nose. Qin Xiu met Old Six, who was on a mission. This was something unexpected. I want to know if you let anyone know that you know him when you saw him just now? Commander-in-Chief Xia asked in a deep voice. This was very important and he had to know. Qin Xiu knew that he was right not to pay too much attention to Xia Jinyuan just now. He replied in a low voice, Commander-in-Chief, please don't worry. I didn't make much eye contact with him. We pretended that we didn't know each other. I can guarantee that no one knows that we know each other. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.